and here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside FT off. Bring in FT off. It's orange!
145! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If there's methane, would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. Keep red. We don't need any more of these.
Hello everybody, we're back with another live Starship update. We've got live feeds of Starbase as always, and we're going to be trying to answer any question you may be hitting at us through the chat. Again, just tag us at NASASpaceflight. We'll try and get them answered as best as we possibly can. Joining me in the comms box today, we have, just as yesterday, Ian Atkinson. How you doing, Ian?
Hey, doing just as great as yesterday, maybe even a little bit more excited because, you know, every day is a day closer to the first flight test of Starship. So super excited to be on another stream here, and let's see what happens.
And also, out in the field this afternoon, down in Starbase in Texas, we have a certain Jack Beyer.
What's up, everybody? And what's up, Ryan? I think, is this our first stream together? Yay.
It is.
Hooray.
Hello.
Crossover.
Anyway, just before we went live, we got a few little members and super chats and just like that coming through. So I'm just going to go through and thank them just at the top of the show here, real quick. Thanks to our Lord for becoming a Red Team member. We also have IRL Nathan becoming a Red Team member. Thanks very much for that. And also, I forgot I should introduce myself. I'm Ryan Caton. I'll be hosting today's broadcast. I just saw my thing come up on screen, so I thought I should probably mention that. And we also have John becoming or gifting rather, one Red Team membership. Thanks very much for that. We have user 20102 becoming a Capcom member, and a couple super chats as well. Dustin saying thanks for all the live streams. What time will NSF begin the coverage on Monday morning? That is still to be assessed. We'll let you know details on that as closer we get to the launch. And Musical Wolves, as always, with a $5 super chat saying patch is out for delivery early. Those TFRs are no time to mean launch license approved. Well, let's talk about the launch license because it is the last weekday of the week. We are well, it's past 5 p.m. Eastern time now. I learned earlier today that the FAA space side at least works 7 days a week, so we could be seeing a launch license approved over the weekend. Ian, do you think we'll still see anything this evening FAA related?
Yeah, well, like you said, it is just past 5 p.m. Eastern right now, and that is usually the end of the workday on the East Coast. Again, I don't know the exact FAA hours. I don't know if the FAA puts a big close sign in the window and puts down the, whatever you call it, puts down the gate for the day. But I think... Yeah, the shutters.
It's like one of those little hanging clock graphics with like the arrows on it you can move, and it's like, we're away, but we'll return in 2 days.
We'll return at 8 a.m. Monday morning.
Yeah, right.
I imagine at the front of like the administration building. But yeah, I'd say it's getting less and less likely we'll get something to drop today. But like you said, we could get something over the weekend. We could even get something Monday morning. We've seen, I mean, in the past, SpaceX will get launch licenses really, really, really close to launch. And this might not be an exception. So yeah, it is interesting to note that we haven't gotten the launch license yet, but I wouldn't necessarily begin to call it worrying yet.
Can I be that guy for a moment?
Yes, you're always that guy, Jack, but you can be the guy right now.
Long-time viewer. Thanks. I'm always the guy? Oh, God. Questioning my reality now.
First-time viewer, long-time questioner.
But yeah, no, I just have to be that guy for a moment and point out that for SN8, they famously did not have a launch license. Now, I'm not saying that they would launch this without a launch license. I point that out to note that the reason they did not have it is because they were basically trying to get it all the way up until T0, and there was some back and forth between them and the FAA over, I forget exactly what the stipulation was that they were sort of negotiating on or going back and forth over. But point being, just because we haven't gotten the launch license today or today yet, does not mean it could not come, at some point early Monday morning before a launch. So just wanted to point that out for a moment. And once again, definitely not expecting them to launch this without a launch license, SN8 style. But just to sort of put into context what we've seen on previous attempts, that is a sort of a valuable data point. Anyways, I'm done being that guy unless Ian is to be believed, and I am in fact that guy at all times.
No, you're great, Jack.
We also have another FAA question from Musical Wolves here, asking, will an FAA safety officer need to be on site for the launch? Offer them bacon to get the license approved faster. Ian, do we know if any FAA safety officers will need to be at Starbase? Or I think there's some NASA people going down, but that's a different government body.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics, but I would be shocked if there were not representatives from the FAA on site, just to make sure everything's going right. If there's any questions, anything that needs to be addressed, I would be shocked if there's no one from the FAA there. We do know that there's going to be a lot of people from NASA there, potentially the WB-57, likely the HLS team, because remember, Starship is contracted to be the lander on the Artemis 3 mission. So NASA is definitely going to be very interested as to what happens on Monday or whenever Starship lifts off. So there's going to be a lot of government people there, and yes, I would assume there's going to be FAA representatives on site as well.
Yeah, I wish my memory for this sort of thing was a little bit better, but I think, if memory serves, and the chat or somebody in the back channel can correct me, part of the stipulations of the result of them launching SN8 without the license was that they have an FAA observer on site for subsequent launches. So I do believe there will be somebody from the FAA on site, although, again, my memory there could be wrong. It has been 2 years, so but that is what I remember.
It's been a very long time since those test flights. It's been too long. We should have seen this earlier, but they go when they're ready, and hopefully they'll be ready on Monday. We have some flight termination system questions. Bean asking, how's the FTS situation looking? And we also have a question here from Gary asking, are there 2 FTSs, one for Starship and one for Super Heavy? Now, Jack, you're down there. Is there separate flight termination systems? Have we seen anything being armed on Starship and Super Heavy?
I do not believe we've seen anything armed. And yes, there are 2 FTS systems. Essentially, I mean, I have to use the word. They're basically bombs, right?
Yeah.
One on Starship and one on Super Heavy, and they are on both vehicles. They are placed at the location of the common bulkhead, the common dome, basically the interface that separates the LOX tank from the methane tank. So if those are activated, they're sort of placed strategically in order to how shall I say this? Separate the parts with maximum efficiency. But yeah, I have not seen anything I would describe as like pin pulling of the FTS system. I know they had a lift up near the FTS system, I think yesterday evening or yesterday afternoon, but they weren't quite at the system. I don't know, maybe that's completely unrelated or what. Maybe there's like a connection further up on the raceway that needs to be made before they do stuff at the actual location of the FTS system itself. But yeah, I don't think we've seen anything that would indicate that those systems have been armed. And just really quickly, I do think we should probably, for viewers who are not keeping a fine-tooth comb on things, is that even an expression? There's multiple steps here for the FTS. There is pulling the pins, which is like a safety pin. Alex really described this well on one of our previous streams. There's a safety, so you have to remove the safety. Then you have to arm the system, which I guess in a way could kind of be like cocking the gun. And then, those are 2 separate things. So when we talk about arming the FTS, I don't think that would necessarily be something done until very, very close to before flight. But in terms of like going up to the FTS system and either placing the charges, I think those might actually already be there, or pulling the pins or what have you, like removing the safety. I think that is sort of what we're waiting for at this point, is the removal of the safety, which they need to do on the ground, which is why Starship is not stacked right now. And then once they remove that safety, then they will stack Starship, and then at some point between stacking and launch, they will arm the system. So just to like sort of be extra clear. I love that Chad is like red wire or blue wire, says Robert Ward. I'm getting. Have any of you guys played Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes?
I've seen.
It's a really fun game. I don't know. It's like this is like the Starship version.
Peter here has a question about the chopsticks in position. Now, Ian, they've been kind of wrapped around just under the fins where the lift points are on the ship. Are we going to be seeing a lift anytime soon, or are they just kind of putting them there to get ready?
Yeah, so they're likely just there because they really don't need them anywhere else right now, so you don't need to move them. They are not, at the moment, fully ready to hook up to the ship. You got to get them hooked up, got to get the stabilizers in to get the ship up off the ground. They're more just there just to keep them there right now. When we're expecting to the lift should be, if they're going for Monday, should be tomorrow or Sunday, depending on when the FTS is armed, when they want to get it stacked for final checks. So they are pretty close to position, but I do not believe they are actually connected right now.
And Leighton has a question about naming. We were talking about names yesterday as well. Jack, if you could name a starship, what would you name it?
Holy cow. Let me think for a moment. Ian, if you have a name that you want to hit, let me. This is like, I know I could just like blurt out a name, but now I feel compelled to actually come up with like a really good one.
Same here.
So,
yeah.
Let me think. What would I name a starship? It would have to be something like with historical significance of some kind, like some kind of callback. It would have to be, I mean, maybe I would name it after one of the shuttle orbiters. Maybe Atlantis, or maybe, I mean, Columbia would be cool. Endeavor would be cool. Basically, you can't go wrong with any shuttle name.
Discovery?
Discovery would be cool. Discovery would be cool.
Yeah,
Mark
I'd agree
in
on that
chat
one.
says Disco Stew. I love it. Thank you, Mark. You get it. Yeah,
now
Discovery
everyone
would
in
be
chat
cool.
is spamming what they call Starship. This is brilliant.
Yeah, right. Hey, engagement.
I'm seeing many enterprises, and the Starship Enterprises seems to be a very popular suggestion for a Starship's name.
Yeah, I think that one should be a crewed starship, but I do think there should, like, if the universe is good and right and just, which, you know, that's up for debate, but if that's the case, then yes, there needs to be, it's like a moral imperative that there be a Starship Enterprise at some point. I mean, if there's already Starbase, they do Starbase in Star Trek as well, so Starship Enterprise launching from Starbase 01, that's too good.
That makes me wonder if on the Artemis missions, when they do the HLS with Starship, if they'll let the crew name the lander like they do with, Crew Dragon now, like they did with Apollo back in the day. I wonder if they'll let the crew name the HLS Starship. And yeah, I think Enterprises should be top of the list, at least if they have any taste.
What? There was one of the Apollo vehicles, I think it was one of the command modules, was named Gumdrop.
Apollo 9.
I forget if that was Apollo 10? 9, thank you. Okay, if they do let the crew name the ship, then please, whatever crew, like, I implore you to name the ship with some sort of fun name. Like, fun name, like, historical significant names, very serious names, those are fun, those are good. At the same time, like, Space Whale or something. Like, something of the nature of Gumdrop would be really cool.
On Apollo 9, they also named their lunar module Spider. They had Gumdrop and Spider, which I think are excellent names for those spacecraft.
They really are, and we get very we can get very technical, we can get very scientific and very serious at times, and a lot of times it's justified. But at the same time, a little bit of levity is always appreciated. I think we're looking at the location of the FTS system there. At least we were. Yep.
And now we can see
the
lifty points.
Yep, those are the stabilizer arm connector points.
Yeah, that's
so the stabilizers are The stabilizers are in position, but not attached yet. Is that a correct assessment?
Yep, they look to be about like a foot away, so about a third of a meter away. So they're definitely
Yeah.
apart, but they are ready to go when needed.
Yeah,
Nifty.
for context, each of those black tiles you see there, ladies and gentlemen, they're about 30 centimeters or 12 inches wide each. So they look teeny tiny little tiles from this perspective, but they are actually quite big compared to a human, just for some scale on these absolutely gargantuan vehicles. They are absolutely massive. Lyric Bread has a question, Jack. Now that Adrian is down there with yourself, Nick, and the rest of the team, are you going to force him to watch The Fifth Element?
Yes. Unequivocally, without hesitation, yes. Literally the only reason we have not watched The Fifth Element yet is because we're all just scrambling, trying to get as much done as we possibly can.
Very quick and concise answer there. Crumb is asking, Ian, I'll throw this one to you. Given the optimal conditions, what does SpaceX's timeline look like for making it to Mars still before 2030? Now, in the original timeline announced in like 2015, 2016 back at IAC, they wanted to be sending cargo ships to Mars last year. Now, that obviously hasn't happened. So what are we looking at for a kind of Mars timeline, Ian?
Yeah, so we have heard Gwen Shotwell, president of SpaceX, saying they are now looking to the early 2030s for sending crew to Mars. So it is a very, very rough timeline there. It very much seems like SpaceX has kind of reshuffled their priorities to get Starship to the moon first, to get Starship launching cargo first. Especially with the HLS contract, they're contracted to do it. They need to be the HLS lander. So it seems like Mars has been kind of shifted to the back burner, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Much like how NASA is saying right now, you can learn a lot by going to the moon. It's a great stepping stone, a great learning place to figure out how to live and work on Mars. So it seems like for crewed flights, they're pushed into the early 2030s. For uncrewed flights, I would not be surprised in the slightest if we see one or two uncrewed starships fly to Mars this decade, but I would not expect anything substantial.
Sounds good.
I've been saying it for years now. Mars 2030. Come on, let's do it. Let's send it. I know it's not even a transfer window. Let's just do it. More fuel and just do it.
Well, Jack, there's no transfer window in 2030, so you're either looking at 2029 or 2031, my boy.
So we'll send it in 2029 and it'll arrive in 2030, right?
No, I think it would still be in 2029.
I substitute your reality for my own.
Understood.
Tommy here has a question about range violations. Everybody loves a good old range violation. With the option to hold or abort the launch if there is a range violation, what are the options if there's a violation after the launch, such as in the landing zone? We know that Super Heavy is going to be performing a soft water landing in the Gulf. So, Ian, what options does SpaceX have if a boat kind of just gets in the way of Starship or a plane or something like that?
Well, the only real option if you're still on the ground and something comes into the range, the only real option is to go into a hold. And that hold will persist as long as that vehicle is in the range. You're going to send the Coast Guard out or the FAA out. They are going to get a substantial fine. They're going to get some people in black suits knocking on their door. But as long as there is something in the range, they cannot launch. That happened very recently with the Relativity launch. One of their attempts of Terran 1, there was a boat in the range, and they had to hold for a little bit while the Coast Guard escorted them out. So once there's something in the range, you cannot launch. If something comes into the range while you are launching, that basically becomes their problem. You can't just abort a launch during flight. I don't know if that would lead to an FTS activation, but once something's in the air, it's the person in the range's issue to deal with now.
Jack, do you have any thoughts on an FTS activation after launch?
I don't think... Well, okay. I'm getting vibes from, what was it, Demo 1, where there was all the boats coming up to the crew capsule as it was landed.
Yeah. No, Crew 1, not Crew 1, Demo 2.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Demo 2. Yeah, I have a feeling that lessons were learned, and no one's going to be allowed to get anywhere close to anything that's in the water, if there is anything in the water that's like floating or visible or what have you. Now, in terms of FTS, that gets saved on the way down, so not, I don't expect that to be activated anytime after launch. But in terms of like range violations after launch, hopefully it's just not a thing. Let's just go with that.
Hmm. We have a question here about abort systems from Charbra, I believe. Sorry if I got that wrong. It just... Ooh, what happened there? There are loads of questions going through. I have no clue what just happened there. And I've lost it.
Sometimes the panel glitches out a little bit.
Yeah. It just sent 3 questions through onto air. So, sorry about that. I've just lost that question.
Just-
I'll try find
Just
one quickly.
speed run 'em.
Speed running through it, yeah. Just looking through here, see what we can bring up next. Brandon here has a question about the Starship recovery. Is it going to crash straight into the ocean, or will it relight the engines and have a soft water landing into the Pacific like the booster is into the Gulf? Ian, do we know what's happening with Ship 24 as it hopefully gets through re-entry?
Yeah, so SpaceX did publish a launch timeline. Now we do know that Booster 7 is at least going to attempt a partial boost back burn and a landing burn in the Gulf of Mexico. Now the ship, on the other hand, if it passes through reentry, which is a massive if, even making it to reentry on this mission is not a given. But if it somehow makes it through reentry, it seems that SpaceX is just going for a belly flop, or I guess as Ryan's saying, a face plant into the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
They don't seem to be going ahead with any type of flip and burn or any type of engine relight on the ship, which honestly to me is a bit surprising, but it seems like they're trying to maximize the chance of just getting rid of it. You don't have any debris on the ocean. It seems like what they're going for on this mission. For future missions, maybe they'll change it, but at least for this mission, there is no ship landing burn.
Sounds good. We also have a point here from Coolian92 saying that on the SpaceX website, they said that they're going to catch the booster but land the ship in future. Do we have any hints on landing legs yet, potentially, with the Starship, Ian or Jack? Either of you have any clue how Starship itself is going to be recovered?
Well, yeah, they did. Elon has talked about they've thrown around the idea of catching a ship with chopsticks. That seems to very much be on the back burner right now. We have only seen very, very crude single-use prototype landing legs on, SN5, SN6, and then SN8, SN15, and so on. It was a one-use deploy, crush core landing leg. Once you land on it and crush it, you can't reuse it. So those were just some test legs they threw together. There's been no sign of any other production or reusable landing legs, nothing like Falcon 9s. It seems like they have kind of paused that right now while they figure out how to fly the vehicles. Ship 24, as a matter of fact, along with Ship 20 and all the other ships in the series, do not have any landing legs, nor do they have any mounts for landing legs. So any type of landing hardware in general for the ships is very much on the back burner right now. But one thing to keep in mind, they are going to need landing legs in the future for, of course, not only landing on land eventually, but landing on the moon. Now, the HLS landers obviously will need some kind of landing legs. There's no chopsticks on the moon to catch the HLS Starship. So you're going to need, I guess, yet.
I'm joking. Please continue with your actual insightful commentary. I'll shut up.
I can imagine them just building, just saying robots to build chopsticks to catch HLS. Anyway, but yeah, they're going to need some landing legs for that. We've seen a few renders with very, very differing designs. It doesn't seem like they're really finalized on any design for HLS legs and any HLS legs right now, but they're going to need to come to that in the future. So that'll be interesting to watch them engineer that.
It's one of those things where surely they're working on it. No, we haven't seen any developments in that area, but yeah, obviously they will need legs for landing on the moon and Mars, and unless they come up with... Okay, all right, wait. Hold my beer for a second. Remember the Mastin technology where I think it was called FAST, where they would spray alumina into the rocket plume and basically paint their landing pad as they came in. How about we come up with something like that, but instead of spray painting a landing pad, it like throws out tower pieces and builds the tower. And okay, I'm done. I'll stop.
This reminds me of like those the Lego Star Wars kind of video games where you just really quickly throw things together and you get like a starship or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's like maybe it's a dead reference.
You just get like a Lego gun and you just like spray out a starship real quick.
Or a super fast 3D printer.
There you go.
Yeah. We've had a few more super chats that are like come in real quick, so I'm just going to go through them. We have 5 Red Team memberships from Daniel B. Thanks very much for sending them over. If you received one of them, make sure to thank Daniel in chat. We also have Brett becoming a launch director member. That's one of the highest tiers of membership we have. We also have a super chat here from Josh. Do we know who the launch director will be for the test flight? Got my patch today representing in Washington State. Ian, do we have any kind of insight who the launch team are at SpaceX? I know we have some insight at NASA, but NASA being a government entity has to be a lot more open than a private company does.
Yeah, no, you nailed it right on the head there. So yeah, we do know the Artemis launch team, the flight team there for Artemis 1. But for SpaceX, obviously they really don't need to share that information, so they haven't shared that information. We don't know who the launch director is, anyone on the launch team there. But yeah, SpaceX does have their own internal team there, and they will be controlling Starship on Monday.
We also have Marcel here, who's purchased off the store, saying that you guys are the best. Thanks very much for the compliment. I think you got a patch. You did get a patch. Everyone's getting the patch. The patch is extremely popular right now. It came back into stock yesterday, so if you do want to pick one of them up, you can get one at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We also have DUI getting a few items off of the store. Thanks very much for that. We have Stefan saying, Jack, 2 words, bacon plushie. Jack, we're getting the new Starship plushie at some point. Jack, should we get a bacon plushie as well? I don't know, a pinkish Starship plushie. I don't know.
That would be kind of amazing. I just got a bacon plushie. It's hanging from the mirror, the rearview mirror of my Land Rover right now. My girlfriend won it for me at a claw game. So yes, bacon plushies. I endorse this.
Noah with a store message saying, love the new intro. Given how much testing has been done, how confident are you that Starship will clear the tower and make it to stage separation? Thanks for all the updates. You got a sticker there for your laptop. So Ian, how confident are you that Starship will clear the tower?
I feel very confident Starship will clear the tower. In fact, I honestly feel confident enough they'll make it to max Q. After that, I think my odds start to drop personally, but I really don't see any doubt they're going to clear the pad, clear the tower, and get over the Gulf at some point in the flight.
We have a question here from Justin. I live on the, I believe that's the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Correct me if I'm wrong. MS, is that right?
Yes, Mississippi.
So, saying I live on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I know some places on the east coast of Florida can see Falcon 9 launches. Can Starship be seen from here? Now, the trajectory in order to thread the needle between Florida, Cuba, the Bahamas kind of has to go like kind of straight down the middle of the Gulf, going west towards the east, from the west to the east. So, Jack, do you think like the Gulf Coast of Mississippi and that kind of region will be able to see Starship?
Huh. That's a good question. I feel like it would be too far south, but I'm honestly I'm not very sure.
I'm doing a quick Google Earth run right now. Excuse me. I believe it may be visible. However, if it is visible, it'll likely be pretty low on the horizon, maybe 5 to 10 degrees above the horizon. So, Justin, if you want to watch this, I would recommend either going to the beach or getting on top of a high hill or a high building. That's my recommendation there. I'm not certain you'd be able to see it, but it feels likely you may see a glimpse of it low on the horizon.
Private plane? I don't know, something.
Yeah, just don't violate that
Hot air
range.
balloon.
You'll get a lot of people
Yeah.
angry at you.
Yeah.
Lobo, thank you for becoming a Red Team member. We also have Viper with the super chat here. No message, but thanks for the contribution. We also have another super chat here from Lobo asking, why are you sure they're aiming for a launch Monday and not a full wet dress rehearsal? Well, Ian, last week SpaceX gave us a little bit of an update on Twitter, didn't they?
Yeah, so it seems that SpaceX is really done with testing. They are going straight ahead with the launch. We've also not seen any really announcement that they're going ahead with testing. In fact, one thing that kind of comes to mind is that the road and beach closures for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday specifically mention space flight activities. Now, I am certain that SpaceX could amend that if they need to go for a wet dress rehearsal, say if the weather is looking bad or if they can't get a launch license in time. I would not be too surprised if they go ahead with a wet dress rehearsal. However, everything that I've seen so far seems to indicate they are still on track for a launch on Monday. So maybe a wet dress rehearsal as a backup option, but they seem confident that they don't need to do any more testing before that launch.
Sounds good. We also have, we've had so many messages come in. I'm just going to, sorry we can't go through all of your questions. I'm just going to kind of have to speed run them here as quickly as possible. Chef Prov asking, will we hear sonic booms on the beach with the boosters, or are we too far from splashdown? Jack, what is we know we get the sonic booms with Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy RTLSs. You've been to a few of them yourself. What about sonic booms for Super Heavy? Do you think they'll be able to hear anything from Boca Chica Beach?
I suspect yes. How far off the shore is Super Heavy landing? Is it like 30 miles or something?
I've heard around 20 miles. That's been proposed before, but I don't believe we have any concrete numbers on this specific launch right now.
Okay, what I will say is, and I'm going to talk very slowly while I bring up maps, I have heard Falcon 9 RTLS sonic booms from a landing at Vandenberg, from near Los Angeles. Not quite Los Angeles proper, but from near Los Angeles. So that's like, okay, I'm just going to give up and not map it out. But that's pretty far. It's a couple hundred miles. So if it's under 100, if the booster lands under 100 offshore, which I think is basically a certainty, I would say there's a fairly high likelihood that a sonic boom will be audible. Now, will it be audible above, like, people cheering? Will it be extremely loud? I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. Like this particular time that I'm thinking of, that I heard a sonic boom in the LA region, from a Falcon 9 landing at Vandenberg, it was very quiet. I was in a very quiet place, and I heard a soft thump, and I was like, "Whoa, that was definitely the sonic boom. I did not expect to hear it all the way down here." So, yeah, I would not be surprised if the sonic boom from landing is audible from Boca Chica. Good question.
Sounds good. Yeah, very good question. Thanks for that.
Absolutely.
We have a Red Team membership being... Oh, and also on screen you can see the NOTMAR there at Hawaii and in the Gulf. So that's the ocean regions which are being blocked off there from our writer Alex. Thanks to Sven for gifting one Red Team membership. Andrew has bought off the store and says ready to light this candle. We also have a Red Team membership being gifted by Brent. Thanks very much for that. Also a messageless super chat from Viper here, and another super chat from Fred. Thanks very much for that. Thanks Nova for the super chat. We also have Mr. Safety upgrading to the Launch Director tier. That's one of the highest there is. Thank you very much for that. And we also have Camden buying off the store. Stores have been very popular over the last few days. Again, we've got the patches have been restocked, so if you want to get your hands on one of them, head over to shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We have Chrome Penguin with a super chat saying you can name the Starship after you. Chrome, I mean, it does kind of match. Shiny Starship. And we also have a super chat here from James. Right, if you have a question for us, tag us in chat at NASASpaceflight. I'm going to try and get through some of them now as well. We've got loads of very good questions coming in this afternoon alongside our live views of Starbase. We have a question here about the deluge system from Richard, asking, NASASpaceflight may have missed it, but what is the status of the deluge system? Ian, can you give us a little bit of a rundown of what SpaceX have been up to with deluge systems at Starbase?
Yeah, so SpaceX has gotten a lot of deliveries over the past few weeks and past few months. We do know that they are working on a deluge system for the orbital launch pad. We don't know too many specifics on exactly how it's going to work, what it's going to look, but we have seen a lot of parts being delivered to SpaceX. They are currently making sub-assemblies over at the old gas well site near the propellant production site. So they are getting ready to install it. It seems like, especially given the fact that they are, trying to launch in 2 days, it seems like they're not going to go ahead with installing the deluge system before the first flight. It would not surprise me, however, if in the downtime between flight 1 and flight 2, or maybe even after flight 2, if they go ahead with installing the water deluge system there. And there you have a nice shot of the production site. The deluge system is kind of, you can't see it exactly, but it's being built just in front of the rocket garden on the left side of your screen. So that's where the deluge is being built. So I would assume that it's going to be installed after this first flight as they go through pad renovations, do any hardware updates that they need on booster 9, ship 25, and get ready for flight number 2. But that's the current status of the deluge system.
Thanks very much. We we have another question about the WDR, which we did cover earlier, but a few more people have come into the stream since then, so it's worth answering it again. From ML Matt asking, do we think they're skipping the WDR, or would they try and get it done this weekend? So Ian, what's the status of any wet dress rehearsals that SpaceX could be doing with Starship?
Yeah, so again, it seems like there is no more wet dress rehearsals. We've seen them, of course, do one very successful wet dress rehearsal on their first try, which is a significant accomplishment on SpaceX's part. And that gives me some good confidence that there's a solid chance we might fly this coming week. But it seems like since they got that first wet dress rehearsal done, they seem like they're happy with all the data that they got there and how everything performed. They seem confident that they don't need to do any more pre-flight testing. Wet dress rehearsals, static fires, cryoproofs, they seem all done, really. So, yeah, it seems like there's no more wet dress rehearsals coming along for Starship.
And Lucas has a question about the launch license. Again, we were talking about that earlier, but many more people have come in. Can a launch license come over the weekend, or would it only be today or Monday morning? Now, Jack, do you think that the FAA would be issuing launch licenses over the weekend?
Over the weekend? No, I don't think so. I would expect it at this point to come Monday morning, maybe even like while we're in the flow for a launch.
Sounds good. And we have a question here about the ignition process for Raptor 2. Xbar asking, does Raptor 2 use TTEB like the Falcon 9? Ian, what kind of ignition process does SpaceX use for the Raptor 2s? Because I think there's slightly different processes for the booster rings, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so the ignition for Raptor overall is the same across every engine. The difference that you're talking about between the center Raptors in the center 13 Raptors of the Super Heavy booster versus the outer 20 engines of the Super Heavy booster, the outer engines are ignited, are spun up, so they pump gas through the engines to get the pump spun up by the ground support equipment. And that actually reduces the mass of the booster because you don't need to have that spin up equipment on the booster. Instead, they have very small quick disconnect umbilicals going into each of the 20 engines around the base of the booster. The inner engines are spun up by the booster itself so they can relight in flight. Now, for the ignition themselves, the Raptors do not use TTEB, triethyl aluminum and triethyl borane, like Falcon 9 does. And the reasoning for that is TTEB is expended when you ignite it. Much like, igniter fluid in a lighter or on a grill, it's not reusable. And Starship needs to be rapidly reusable. You can't keep, refilling it with TTEB. And there is no TTEB on the moon. There's no TTEB on Mars. You can't make it easily there. So instead, Raptor uses a torch ignition system. And what that is where they have a very, very small jet of methane and oxygen coming into both the pre-burners and the combustion chamber. They ignite that using a spark, so you basically have a very small torch coming into the chamber, and then they begin pumping the propellants in to get all those ignited. So Raptor is a torch-ignited rocket engine, unlike Falcon 9's Merlins, which are TTEB ignited with I forget the term now. It left my mind, but they are somewhat hypergolic. I can't remember the exact term. They react with oxygen and burn.
Sounds good. We have a Red Team membership here being gifted by Brent. Thanks for that. How's the weather next week? Musical Walls is asking. No, this isn't the range for Starbase isn't controlled by the Eastern Range, who publish their weather. Like they give us like a T-2 day, T-1 day kind of weather forecast. But Jack, do we have any other kind of indication how the weather will be looking on Monday?
I gotta confess I have not looked at the forecast, but I feel like I remember somebody saying it's going to be like sunny and clear. So hopefully that's the case.
Sounds good. I do want a good.
Go ahead.
I do want some good weather on Monday because even though I'm not there, if this thing goes, we want to be able to get some very cool views of the launch. And if you would like to see some cool views of the launch and help to support the cool views of the launch, our new patch that's been in the shop for the last few days is being selling very quickly. It's a very popular product, so if you would like to get a patch to sew onto things or put some Velcro on and stick to, I don't know, your bag or hat or jacket or whatever, if you want to get a patch, get one at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We've also got the design on t-shirts, hoodies, jumpers, so if you want to wear it. We've also got it as a sticker if you want to put it, I don't know, on your laptop or on your monitor or, I don't know, on your desk, something like that. And we also have it in a flag kind of banner form, so if you want to pin it up on your wall, you can also do that at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Speaking of patches being sold, we've got so many different store messages coming in, so I'm just going to try and fly through all of them that we've got so quickly. We have thanks to Andrew for buying off the store. We also have Sebastian buying off the store. Who else do we have buying off the store? We have Orion buying off the store. We have Vanessa buying off the store. We also have Antonio buying off the store. We have Brett, and we also have Wesley. Thanks for all buying off of the store this afternoon. We have a question here from Raven's Revenge asking, is it possible the current Starship design was partially inspired by Werner von Braun's aggregate or ferry rocket? Now, Ian, thinking back to von Braun's day, what kind of inspiration do you think that SpaceX and the team have pulled for Starship's design?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not too up to date on all my von Braun trivia. I would not be surprised if maybe they took a little inspiration from it, but I think Starship is really more inspired from Falcon 9, from the Space Shuttle, maybe a bit of Saturn Shuttle in there. But Starship overall is really very much its own design. It's based on what SpaceX has learned, based on what NASA has learned through the Space Shuttle, because and I believe I've actually heard Chris agree with this, so I'm going to take his word for it. Starship, in my eyes, is really Shuttle 2.0. It's what Shuttle should have been. At least that's what they're hoping to make it. So I would say it took a lot more from Space Shuttle than anything else in terms of the infrastructure and the engine design, things along those lines. But yeah, definitely we would not be here without Falcon 9 or Space Shuttle.
Mm-hmm. Scott is asking, is Ryan going to have any voice left for tomorrow? Going to go the Starship orbital test flight. I will tell you, Scott, we have been absolutely cranking out content for you all over the last few days because we're very excited for Starship's OFT, just like you all are, and we want to try and spread the message as much as we can. So yeah, we've been cranking out videos for you all. We're doing these daily update live streams to keep you all up to date with as much of the latest information as possible. So it's glad to see that you are seeing or excited for the stream. And we've had some news, breaking news in the last couple of minutes from Eric Berger from over at Ars Technica saying stand by for news from the Federal Aviation Administration at 5:50 p.m. Eastern Time. That's coming up in just over 4 minutes now. So could that potentially be a launch license being issued by the FAA for SpaceX? As soon as we get any information from the FAA in, we will let you know as soon as possible. But for now,
yeah,
I'm
I don't know
into
what else that would be. It certainly seems like that's the case. So
yeah,
we could
and
be
we
like
know
4 minutes away.
Yeah, and we know that Eric has been getting some information from his insider sources over the last few days now. But for now, I'm going to get into this question from Geo saying, when do you think Orbital Flight Test 2 will be? Now, Ian, we haven't even had number 1 yet, but what kind of time frame do you think the data review process will be for Orbital Integrated Starship, whatever they're calling it, Flight Test 1?
Yeah, so It really depends on how flight test 1 goes. If it is a seemingly flawless flight, like Starship makes it through reentry and belly flops in the Pacific successfully, I think it will be a much shorter data review and hardware analysis than if it were, a failure in flight. Either way, I think it's still going to be a very long process of analyzing the data, figure out exactly how everything worked, to make sure every single engine, every single component, every valve worked perfectly. Someone's shaking their hand. But it's going to be a long process, I think. But yeah, I think Orbital Flight 2 August seems likely in my eyes. Maybe a little bit earlier if they get everything wrapped up super quick. But yeah, I think it's going to be a few months probably.
And just before we get some potential news in about 3 minutes or so, I'm just going to run through some of these contributions real quick. Thanks for the gifted membership. We will rocket you. We also have a tip from Alien, I think, with the 1s and the 3s. That's at tips.nasaspaceflight.com. That's a bit more of a more direct way to support us. We have JC Davis with a super chat asking, where can we meet NSF next week? Now, I'm afraid to break it to you, but the team out at Starbase at the moment is extremely busy, so we don't really have any kind of meetup or something like that planned. We have 20 Red Team memberships being gifted by Samuel. Thank you very much. That's a big contribution. If you received one of them, make sure to thank Samuel in chat. You also have a super chat from Steve. Thanks very much for that, as well as Lachlan. Thank you very much for that as well. $20 from Steve. Thank you very much. And a Red Team membership being gifted by Brent. Another no message here from Ben, but thank you very much for the contribution anyway. We also have a name proposal here from Felix saying suggestion for the Starship name Boca Chica in honor of Mary, who was pretty much one of the first people to start documenting the Starship Starbase development about 4 years ago now. We also have $5 from Jimmy. Thank you very much for that. And a super chat here from Steve Dickinson. A Red Team membership being gifted by Ground Umbilical Carrier Plate. Thank you very much for that. And no message, but a little bit of money from Rankley. We have a question here also related to the NSF team from Crouchy, perhaps. Sorry if I got that wrong. How much of the NSF team is currently in Boca? Now, Jack, you're down there. Who else is down there with you, bringing us this good coverage of the OFT?
I'm here. Adrian is here. Of course, Nick and Mary are here. Das is here. So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Michael just arrived. So there's 6. I know Tyler is going to arrive, I think, on Sunday. So there's 7. Adam, I believe, is also going to be here. Our McGregor contingent. So that's what, 8. And gosh, I hope I'm not forgetting anybody off the top of my head, but. Yeah, we're suffice to say, we're pulling out all the stops. I said that a lot with Artemis, that we were pulling out the stops, and it was really, there's no brakes on the hype train here. So definitely the same thing going on for Starship's first launch. We are just absolutely putting all the grunt into the system that we can in order to have the best possible stream that we possibly can for this historic event. So definitely a lot of us on site, and I will say, though, just very quickly, thank you to everybody who is not on site, because as we're running around plugging things in and trying to shoot content and just being in a signal deprived area and just sort of running and gunning, it's the people in the background who are in the studio. It's Kevin, it's Patrick, it's you, Ryan. It's all the people that are not here, that are the glue that are keeping things sort of together. So whether or not we have 1 million people here, which we do, it's a massive distributed effort across many people across many countries. So there are no stops. There never even were any stops. If you thought there were stops, you're wrong. No stops.
You pulled out all the stops for Artemis 1, and then for Starship, you made even more stops just so you could pull those out too.
Yeah, we 3D printed some stops, and then we pulled them out.
Yep.
I'd just like to thank Florida Space Nerd here for gifting 1 Red Team membership. It is 5:51 on the east coast of the US. I haven't got any news just yet, but we will be keeping our eyes out to see if anything does come through. Ben has a question here. How does SpaceX plan on making a human-rated version of Starship? Now, Ian, have we had any information on... or actually, I'm just going to go quickly. Eric has broke on Twitter that SpaceX has its launch license for the integrated flight test. There's no other information on that at the moment, but when we get that, we will bring it to you. But it has been confirmed by Eric Berger on Twitter that SpaceX has received its launch license for the flight test. So when we get that information, we'll bring it to you. But Ian, quickly on this question about human rating Starship, yeah, what do we know about that?
Yeah. So, well, first off, wow, I'm so excited they got their launch license. That is the last major hurdle jumped over. So we're go for Monday. Anyway, making a human-rated version of Starship is a very difficult endeavor. They have learned a lot from Dragon 2, from building Crew Dragon and getting that ready for flight. And yet you see the tweet right there from Eric Berger saying that SpaceX has their launch license. Unbelievable. I'm so happy to be saying that. But to make a crew-rated Starship, they have learned a lot from Dragon, so they're definitely going to use some of the lessons learned from Crew Dragon, possibly even reuse some hardware, maybe like seats, displays, life support system. I would not be surprised if the interior of a crewed Starship looks a lot just like a bigger Crew Dragon interior.
And we have word here from Christian Davenport from the Washington Post saying that the FAA grants SpaceX its license to launch Starship. Quote, after a comprehensive license evaluation process, the FAA has determined SpaceX met all safety, environmental, policy, payload, aerospace integration, and financial responsibility requirements in order to make the orbital integrated Starship flight test. And Marcia Smith from Space Policy Online is confirming that the FAA has issued the license for Starship, good for 5 years. So hopefully it doesn't take 5 years for the orbital flight test to get off the ground, but that is the duration at which the license has been issued to SpaceX for the orbital flight test from the FAA. If you're just joining us, the news is out. Eric Berger broke it first on Twitter. SpaceX has its launch license for the orbital flight test, and this is pretty much all fingers are pointing towards Monday at the moment. Jack, how are you feeling about the FAA granting the license?
Do you want my hype answer or do you want my honest human answer?
I want both answers.
Okay, my hype answer is let's go. Yes, that's exactly what we want to hear and exactly what we want to see. We were hoping that the license would come through today. I mean, if you've been listening to the stream earlier, I was speculating maybe it would come Monday morning, but no, we have confirmed from multiple reporters. We have the SpaceX has a launch license, so that is huge. That is very exciting. It has been a long time coming to get to this point, and Starship is finally ready to make its orbital integrated test flight, whatever you want to call it, debut. That's extremely exciting. My honest human answer is, sort of ironically, after all of these years of waiting, as prepared as I have gotten and as much as I have done to get prepared, I sort of don't feel ready. I'm almost at a loss for words. It's going to happen. It's finally going to happen. They're going to make an attempt on Monday. Holy cow. I see Jim Laz in chat saying, book your flights. Jim Laz, I fear if you haven't already booked a flight, it might be too late, but holy cow. This is real. I guess we have the statement here.
Yeah, so the FAA is announcing the following news. On April 14th, the FAA issued SpaceX a vehicle operator license to launch the Starship/Super Heavy vehicle from Boca Chica in Texas. After a comprehensive license evaluation process, the FAA has determined SpaceX met all safety, environmental, policy, payload, airspace integration, and financial responsibility requirements. The license is valid for 5 years. The FAA is responsible for protecting the public during commercial space transportation, launch, and re-entry operations operations. We carefully analysed the public safety risks during every stage of the mission and required SpaceX to mitigate those risks. We saw the environmental mitigation last year, I believe. We went through that when that came out. In addition, the FAA will implement various airspace integration measures designed to reduce the impact of the launch on commercial airline flights and other airspace users. The FAA will use key mission, quote, triggers, such as the loading of rocket fuel and the final disposition of the booster rocket to pinpoint when to close and reopen airspace. For the first time, the FAA will implement time-based procedures for a launch from Boca Chica. This will identify and reroute only I'm going to start that again. This will identify and reroute only the aircraft directly affected by the closed airspace, allowing more aircraft to stay on their most optimal and efficient routes. It has previously only been used for launches from the Florida Space Coast. And finally, both the Starship vehicle and the Super Heavy booster will transmit telemetry data to the FAA via the Space Data Integrator tool. Data such as position, altitude, speed, and any deviation from its expected flight path will provide the FAA situational awareness and, in combination with other information, help to reopen airspace quicker. So that's the full statement there from the Federal Aviation Administration, which has just come out in the last few moments here. If you're just joining us, yes, your eyes do not deceive you. The FAA has approved the launch license for SpaceX to launch the maiden flight of Starship to nearly an orbital velocity, the integrated flight test. Everything is pretty much go for Monday now. We are getting very close, and we have an official tweet from SpaceX as well. So much stuff to read. SpaceX has said that they are targeting as soon as Monday, April 17th, for the first flight test of a fully integrated Starship and Super Heavy rocket from Starbase in Texas. So there is nothing holding SpaceX back, or is there, Ian? Is this the last hurdle that they needed to cross for the orbital test flight to go ahead on Monday?
Yeah, in terms of getting official government approvals, this is their last major hurdle. Now, of course, the vehicle is currently destacked for the flight termination system arming, which we've talked about. That and restacking is basically the last major thing that they need to do now. So once they get the vehicle restacked, be it either tomorrow night or Sunday or something, then they're really good to go. They have the final launch license. They are ready to fly on Monday, which I can't believe I'm even saying that. That is so amazing to finally be hearing.
It is getting very, very, very exciting now, and only in the last few minutes, many more of you have been joining us. I'm just going to hit this €300 tip. Thank you very much from I am Jaded Hobo. I believe that's how I should be pronouncing your name. Sorry if I got that wrong. Thanks for the €300 there. That is a massive contribution that will be very, very well used in order to bring you the best coverage possible of Starbase. We also have €50 from Samuel. Thank you very much for that as well, and to everyone who is contributing financially and just watching the stream, watching the content. It all goes a long way in helping to promote our videos and live streams and such in the YouTube homepage to bring it to more people, because we're very excited for this orbital flight test. Now confirmed the first attempt for Monday. Jack, what do you think about any potential scrubs that could be happening? I don't want to use the word too much, but we also have to. We can be hyped, but we have to remain kind of reserved. We need to be looking at the realistic options SpaceX has. This is the world's largest rocket. It's the first time it's going to be launching. What should we be expecting on Monday?
Yeah, I've heard you sort of mention this on previous streams in the last couple days as well, and it's a really good thing to remember that first launches of rockets often do not go smoothly on the initial attempts, and it takes a couple attempts. That is absolutely not unheard of. In fact, it's par for the course. So we should expect maybe an abort at some point in the flow, and then if they can, a recycle. If it's a serious enough issue, maybe they go on a backup day. They do have, I believe, Tuesday and Wednesday as backup days, so that is not a big deal. Now, at the same time as we should all, temper our hype with the expectation of, a few holds or issues or delays in the countdown, at the same time, and that's what I expect, to be clear. That is what I expect. I expect them to attempt on Monday, maybe get to a very close to T0 abort, then either recycle or abort for the day and go again on on Tuesday or Wednesday. Now, that said, we were talking about the weather earlier. The weather on Monday is in fact going to be nice and sunny and clear. However, on Tuesday, there is a 45% chance of rain and lightning, and on Wednesday, it is cloudy with a 54% chance of rain. So, and Thursday is a 70% chance of rain. So hopefully Monday is the day. That said, I can't help but remember the wet dress rehearsal that we saw. The wet dress rehearsal went insanely well, and there were a couple holds and delays in the flow for the wet dress rehearsal, exactly as like we're talking about. However, that wet dress rehearsal was accomplished on the first day and the first time that they attempted to do it. So, all that said, you know, we could see a situation where, just like Falcon Heavy's first launch, they have some issues in the count, they work through them, and they do in fact launch on the first day of attempt. So I think it could go either way, but either way, it's going to be awesome. Like, holy cow, or holy horses, we have a launch license. Finally, this is happening. This is real.
And to doubly, quadruply confirm the opening time for the launch window, should I say, SpaceX has confirmed on their website. SpaceX is targeting as soon as Monday, April 17th for the first flight test of a fully integrated Starship and Super Heavy rocket from Starbase in Texas. The 150-minute test window will open at 7 a.m. Central Daylight Time. That's 12 UTC, I think, if I'm getting that right, 1300 BST. You can do your own calculations and conversions from 12 midday universal time. That is officially quadruply confirmed when SpaceX will be opening up the window. The FAA have approved the license. Everything is pointing towards a launch at that time. But of course, as Jack was just saying, we need to get ready if there are any kinds of holds. The wet dress rehearsal that they did perform with the full stack went very smoothly for a first full wet dress. However, we should still get ready. It's good to get hyped up, but we should also prepare for disappointment, because this is aerospace we're talking about. Rockets never really go smoothly on the first attempt. We've seen plenty of scrubs before, and Sawyer actually did a video a little while back about some different scrubs. So if you're interested in some more historical scrubs of maiden flights of rockets and things like that, go back on the channel and check that out.
I will
I've had a
say,
few, go on, Jack.
There's a small asterisk on the wet dress rehearsal went very smoothly, minus the giant cloud of methane. So hopefully we get an even smoother count on Monday, and they get it off the ground, and we don't have to worry about weather or anything like that, and everyone is treated to quite a sight. We're thinking SN 8, 9, 10 vibes. We're not thinking SN 11 or 15 vibes.
Yeah. Musical Wolves saying with $5, am I dreaming? The launch license has been granted. You're not dreaming, or we're all dreaming, but I believe that this is indeed reality. The launch license for Starship's OFT has indeed been approved. Homebound Traveller just saying a very long woo there. That's how we're all feeling right now. Thanks, Rob, for going up to a launch director member. And we also have a tweet there from Chris Berg in NSF Actual, and there's a Monday attempt confirmed. It's really happening now to restack Ship 24. So Ian, they want to arm the flight termination system as close to launch as possible. Whenabouts do you think that we could be seeing the restack of Ship 24 happening? Tomorrow or Sunday, or very, very early on Monday perhaps? What are we thinking?
Yeah, so we don't know exact timelines, but I'd say it's very likely they're going to do it at the earliest, maybe tomorrow night, or at the very, very latest early on Sunday. I would assume they want to have enough time to make sure everything is integrated correctly, test all the systems, make sure everything's connected, all fine, everything's working great. You don't want to stack it, Monday at 5:30 and then launch at 7. So I would say sometime this weekend, either very late tomorrow night or very early Sunday morning, we should expect a restack sometime around then. But we're going to have to wait and see, and it's just so exciting.
Yeah, this is the first fully integrated flight of this vehicle. We've seen point-to-point animations in the past, but that is not until very, very far down the line in the development timeline of Starship at least, so we shouldn't really be expecting any kind of quick turnaround on the maiden flight of Starship. SpaceX wants to get as much data as possible. They want to give Starship a solid foundation to launch off of. They want everything to go as smoothly as possible, and what happens past T0 can't really be controlled. However, it is for the best that we get the best data possible from this flight. Again, we've had many different contributions coming in from you all over the past few moments since this FAA launch license has been granted approximately quarter of an hour ago. Thank you to LMC for becoming a PadRap member. We have Noah saying this is going to be the longest weekend of my life. And Cole is asking, how close do we need to get to see the launch? Now, Jack, how close do you think that, what's like the maximum and minimum and maximum distance to see the launch? Of course, you can watch it live on NSF with us on launch day, but if you want to see it in real life, whereabouts should you be?
I mean, I think the best place to be is going to be on South Padre Island. If you can get to Isla Blanca Park and get a spot anywhere there, you are basically as close as most people are going to be able to get. I'm looking for a tweet right now from Gene, Space Padre. Let's see if I can find that really quick. Just a second. I'm stalling for time. Space Padre. Come on, why is it not working? Here we go. Gene tweeted, and I'll get this link in our channel. I know I'm kind of throwing you guys for a loop on this one, but we're basically that Isla Blanca is going to open their doors Monday morning at 4 a.m. And I highly suspect that they will, in fact, fill up the park. So be ready for an early morning on Monday morning if you're trying to get to Isla Blanca Park. The gate fee, I really want to stress this to people, is cash only. It's cash only. It's $12 to get in. But they do not take cards. And if the previous flight attempts are any indication, there's going to be a long line of cars trying to get into the park. And the very last thing you want to do is spend a huge amount of time waiting in that line of cars only to get to the gate and not have $12 in cash. So definitely make sure you have cash. Definitely make sure you get out there as early as possible.
Same.
No, absolutely not. We've all been there in various capacities in various situations, and yeah, just don't. Monday morning is not the day for that. Make sure you have like an emergency $20 in your wallet. Make sure you bring sunscreen. Make sure you bring everything that you need. And we have a video that we just launched, a practical guide to Starbase, which we go over a lot of this stuff. So make sure you check that out on the channel after the stream. It's a really excellent video. So check that out. Make sure that you are prepared, and yeah, I would say really anywhere on South Padre Island is good to go. Obviously, you want to be closer to Starbase than further, so probably the southern tip of South Padre or wherever in the area you can get, I think, is your best bet. I watched all of the suborbital hops from Isla Blanca Park, and it is a fantastic location. There are bathrooms. There are there's plenty of space so that you're not, feeling claustrophobic and shoulder to shoulder with people. Although there will be a lot of people, and it will be nearly shoulder to shoulder. I'm almost positive. But yeah, I would say somewhere in the area of South Padre Island. There's also up and down the highway that goes in between South Padre Island and Port Isabel and Brownsville. There's a couple different spots where people will pull off the road. There's like a parking area where people go fishing or like boat ramps. I suspect those are going to be insane and full as well. But if you just can't get into the park, there are other spots. Just sort of Google map it and look and let satellite view and see what you can see. And really anywhere in a 5 to 10 mile radius, I think you're going to be golden.
Sounds good. If you can't get down there, of course, we'll be doing our live coverage on the channel. But if you'd also like to feel the part with some swag, we have our patches, which are extremely popular right now on the merchandise store. That's over at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We have the physical patch, which you can sew into things, I don't know, and get some Velcro or maybe and put it on your jacket or put it on your bag or anything like that. We also have it on mugs if you want to drink out of the patch. We have it on t-shirts, jumpers, hoodies, everything like that. That's the physical patch. You can see it's a very, very well designed patch by Pauline. It's got the 33 Raptors. It's got the location for the launch, Starbase on Earth. Also has the little white star for the moon, the little red star for Mars. It's a very good patch that everybody who's bought it so far seems to be absolutely loving, and it's selling very, very quickly. It only came back into stock yesterday, and we've already sold a large number of them. So thank you, everybody. We also have our Destination Known collection. That's on the hoodie there with the little Starship design and the white moon and red Mars, just like on the patch. We have that on the hoodie. We have that on t-shirts. We also have that on a mug, and we also have many other items on the merch store. So if you would like to get your hands on any of this wonderful swag that you are seeing before your eyes right now, that's all over at shop.nasaspaceflight.com, and that can all be found there. And yeah, we hope that you do enjoy if you decide to pick anything up. There's there's many different other questions that have come in over the last few minutes. We've been kind of holding off on them for now whilst discussing the launch license. So I'm going to try and hit some of these as I can, but there's so much contribution right now. Thank you, everybody who's either bought on the store or done a contribution through Super Chat or a tip or something like that. I'm going to try and get through as many of these as possible. We have a store message here saying you guys are doing a great job. Thanks very much. You're very welcome. We have a super chat here from Plutonium239. Thanks so much for that. Muddy Creek Critters with another super chat. Thank you very much for that. We have Carl becoming a Red Team member. We also have a gifted membership here from Jim and a gifted membership from Nikki, and we also have a rainbow over the Kennedy Space Center right now. As you can see, our Space Coast Live 24/7 cameras have caught that over the Space Coast. Very fitting that this appears just as the launch license has been filed for the integrated orbital Starship flight test.
The rainbow is right over pad 39A, with the second Starship pad being built, if I may add that on. So.
Oh yeah, I couldn't tell because the preview is quite small, but yeah, that rainbow is arching right over 39A. Moldy Space Industries, thanks for the support, as also to Ray Page with 20 USD there. Thanks to Brewing Joe for becoming a Red Team member. Also have an anonymous store message here who has purchased, it looks like a patch. Everybody loves the patch. And we also have this message from a little while ago about the FAA announcement, and another store message here. Thanks to everybody who's buying off the store. Once again, if you want your hands on a patch, shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Everybody loves it. And another super chat here from Ray Page. Thanks very much. More store messages. Again, we don't have time to read all of these out. I'm sorry. There's just so much support right now. It's incredible. Thank you so much. But we're just going to be rattling through these as quickly as we can. So thank you so much to everybody who has bought off of the store. Your support goes a very long way in helping to keep our coverage going as well as it does.
Man, how about that rainbow?
Yeah,
that's ridiculous. Like, if you ever have a moment where you're like, okay, normally I roll my eyes at the whole we're living in a simulation thing, but that one's kind of weird.
That was great to see.
And we have a PDF that has just come in that Alex has found of the launch license. I'm not sure if we can get that on in a quick method. I believe Alex has just come in here as well. But yeah, the Commercial Space Transportation License for Space Exploration Technologies Corporation has been authorized. That is a 4-page PDF that has just come through.
I'm skimming through it right now.
And Alex has come in. I'm not sure if Alex is ready to come on comms just yet, but Alex is going to be reading us through this PDF in just a moment here. So just stand by, everybody, whilst we get this ready. This 4-page PDF, which has just come through of the launch license. Again, if you're just joining us, the launch license for Starship's orbital integrated, whatever they're calling it, flight test on Monday. That's as soon as it can happen. It's been approved by the FAA. You're not dreaming. It is real. The FAA has approved the launch license. It is happening. It sounds bonkers to be saying that after so many years waiting for this to happen, but it is going to happen on Monday. And joining us now in the comms box, we have Alex. Hello, Alex. How you doing?
Oh boy, I'm nervous right now. I'm shaking because of this. It's great news. Finally, we are already at this point of Starship is ready. Regulatory approvals are, have come by. We are finally in this moment of just 3 days away from the launch. Oh boy, yeah. And I'm just right now, like I joined here on the comms, but I was like looking at the license, seeing whatever came here and things like that. Oh boy, it's short. It's usually short. These things are not really that long, but let's see. Can we bring it up
Here's
live?
Here's something. We were talking about this earlier. Compliance monitoring. An FAA safety inspector must be present at the launch complex for flight operations. So there's confirmation on that.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So that I can't remember who asked it earlier, but there we go. We have the document on screen for you all to look at now.
There we go.
Alex, do you want to take us through this 4-page PDF that the FAA have just published for Starship's orbital flight?
Sure. So usually the first page is basically like it's authorized for blah 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 and things like that. It's just an introduction of how it is. It says Space Exploration Technologies Corporation is authorized subject to the provisions of 51 USC Subtitle 5, Chapter 509, and the orders, rules, and regulations issued under it to conduct launches of the Starship Super Heavy vehicle. This license is granted subject to the terms, conditions, and limitations set forth in licensing orders A and B, and any subsequent orders and other written stipulations issued by the Office of Commercial Space Transportation, which are hereby incorporated by reference. So basically just an introduction of, hey, this is all the stuff that they have to come by, to basically apply to. I cannot find words right now to speak. But yeah, you can see there the original issue date. This thing will not change as as Starship keeps on launching. This license will be in the future will be updated with new things, with new other stuff, with changes here and there, obviously, as they try new things, new different operations as well. That will need a change of the license, but they already have it, so that's a first step. Issued and effective April 14th, today. Well, not today for me because I'm already on 15th, but yeah, there you go. And here you have the table of sort of like all the revisions that there will be for this license. So right now it is revision number 0, which is it's already being issued. It's the original issuance. So once we go over the years, we might see a lot of changes here. And the next page is where all the meat is located. All the bacon for Jack, maybe? Yeah, so
Did somebody say
authority,
bacon? What?
yeah, the authority is just basically, telling you what license is for. So Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, under blah blah all of these legal stuff. Then the purpose, this order modifies license. That license number is the one that was supposed to be for the suborbital launches, and now this one modifies it and effectively replaces it as the new license, as issued concurrently by the Federal Aviation Administration's Office of Commercial Space Transportation, authorizing Space Exploration Technologies to conduct launch of its Starship Super Heavy vehicle. Then the definitions sort of stipulate what every single thing means. So pre-flight ground operations shall mean that SpaceX's pre-flight operations of the Starship Super Heavy vehicle at Boca Chica, Texas, beginning at the start of Autonomous Flight Termination System ordnance installation for the Starship upper stage vehicle. That might sound familiar to those that have been watching today's live stream. And Super Heavy booster vehicle, whichever occurs first. Then the flight shall commence with the ignition of the first stage with the intention of liftoff of a SpaceX Starship Super Heavy vehicle from SpaceX's Boca Chica launch complex. A flight ends upon SpaceX's vehicle or vehicle component impact or landing on Earth after activities necessary to return the vehicle or vehicle component to a safe condition on the ground after impact or landing, or after activities necessary to return the site to a safe condition, whichever occurs latest. So basically, what we all understand as whenever anything that is the rocket is stopping flying. Basically, it hits the ocean, or it's landed on the ground, or whatever else has happened. But basically, as soon as there's no flight, that's basically what it means. But they have to define that for legal reasons, obviously. Then the authorization, it authorized for pre-flight ground operations using the Starship Super Heavy vehicle. Obviously, it's not authorizing Falcon 9 or Falcon Heavy, for example, and at the SpaceX's Boca Chica launch complex at Boca Chica, Texas. Okay, it's not doing it, at Launch Complex 39A or whatever other places they might be, planning to launch a Starship. So these flight operations will be using the Starship Super Heavy vehicle from SpaceX Boca Chica launch complex to Gulf of Mexico and Pacific Ocean locations as specified in its application. Basically, the places where they are intending to launch to, which are obviously over the Gulf of Mexico and the Pacific Ocean in the case of a Starship, where it's going to be splashing down. And for the first flight only, unless this license is modified to remove this term. So this license is only for this first flight. So that's an important term here, because for the first flight only, unless this license is modified to remove this term. Now, anyone here with commentary with me, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this means that this license is just basically for this first flight, and then they will be able to remove it as an addendum to this license, right?
That sounds about right, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So just so I'm not interpreting things here, I needed another person there. So then the fifth, environmental mitigations. This is sort of the things that have been a little bit more itchy with the SpaceX and everything, but hey, it's approved. SpaceX must comply with the measures listed in the conditions and mitigation section of the mitigated finding of no significant impact record of decision for the SpaceX Starship Super Heavy launch vehicle program at the SpaceX Boca Chica launch site in Cameron County, Texas, issued June 13th, 2022. So this is the one that, we were all waiting for last year with the environmental approval. That was approved last year. And this is basically saying, SpaceX just gotta follow it. Compliance monitoring and FAA safety inspectors, this is what Jack mentioned before, must be present at SpaceX's Boca Chica launch complex for flight operations. So, again, very similar to the hubs that we saw where, an inspector had to go there and be present and, take a look at the operations. Then verification of hazard area publication. SpaceX must confirm no later than 24 hours prior to flight that maritime warnings have been issued. And we can get ahead of ourselves here, right? And say that, yes, it's being issued already. Because we've seen the Node Mars. We have actually shown those here on the stream a little bit earlier. And they are definitely out. They have been issued already. And so, yeah, I guess that's ticked in the preparation for the launch. Special reporting requirements. SpaceX must provide FAA with the location and fate of expended vehicle stages within 30 days of each launch using an approved plan that is submitted to the FAA at least 7 days prior to launch. SpaceX must identify and report any anomaly during any pre-flight ground operations of the vehicle that could be material to public health and safety and the safety of property within 90 days. So just what we expect, right? That, hey, they need to tell the FAA what they're going to be doing with the vehicles, what anomalies have happened prior to the launch. That is sort of normal, right? And then the license terminates 5 years from April 14th, 2023. So all the way to April 14th, 2028. Now, as I said before, this license can be renewed, can be modified, can be amended, whatever you want to call that term, but basically, it can be modified at any point in the future to both remove that pesky requirement of these just being for the first flight, but, it's not unheard of for other vehicles as well. I might point that out. And the fact that it terminates in 5 years, that can be also amended. So I guess we covered everything, right? That was the last page.
Whew, you need a breather there, Alex? That was a lot that you read there. Good job.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I've read documents way longer than this.
Especially that environmental assessment that we got a few months ago. That was much longer than this. So it's good to see that the FAA are keeping things concise for us to read out for everybody watching now. Now, over the last few moments since the FAA launch license has been dropped, we've had a lot of more super chats and things like that coming through. So once again, I'm just going to try and rattle through as much of these as possible. Again, apologies that we can't read every single message out, but thank you everybody who is helping to support the channel. We've got a lot of support over the last few minutes, and it is greatly appreciated. This helps to keep the content going, get videos published, like the videos we've been getting out the door this week, and also the live streams, daily live streams up until the launch, giving you loads of keeping you up to date with all of the information that's coming through. Bruno with the £20 saying support for hotel bills, keep up the good work for all of us to enjoy. You're very welcome, Bruno. And Craig with $20 saying thanks for the great coverage. And Lefty Lab has become a Capcom member. That means you get access to the Discord if that's something you would like to get. That's one of the perks you can access if you would like it. Josh saying don't get bacon grease on the launch license. Oscar has become a Red Team member. We also have a Red Team membership be gifted by Jim. Thank you very much for that. Now we know that the launch license has been approved and things are actually happening. Let's talk about what Starship or what SpaceX needs to do with Starship and Super Heavy next. And Keith is asking, do we know if the flight termination system work is done yet? Is it ready for stacking? Ian, what's the current status of the FTS?
Yes, so the flight termination system has not yet been armed. That is something we will likely see maybe late tonight, probably sometime tomorrow, just before they go ahead and restack the vehicle. So that is the last major thing they need to do right now. Maybe a few small inspections here and there. We saw them yesterday go up on a crew lift to do some inspections of either the chopsticks or the ship itself. Now, if everything seems good in that department, they will go ahead with stacking. Like I said earlier, it may be late tomorrow night, it may be early Sunday morning, but probably at the absolute latest, maybe Sunday afternoon. Now, that seems to be the last major thing that we will see visibly before they go ahead with the launch. Of course, we'll see pad clear eventually, but after they stack it, they'll likely go through some testing, making sure everything is connected well, everything's responding how they want it to, just some really last-minute software and hardware checks before launch. Now, we can see here the chopsticks are not attached to the ship right now. They're kind of in a parked position. You can see the stabilizer arms on the bottom are not even connected to the vehicle right now, so it's not ready for a stacking right now, and we will definitely get some indicators when they do go ahead with stacking, let alone the flight termination system arming.
And Matt here is asking with a store message, thanks for all the coverage, so excited to finally see Starship take to the sky. And we actually have, if you're going down to Starbase, Boca Chica, the South Texas, that kind of region, to see the orbital flight, SpaceX actually has a keep out zone kind of PDF that we've been given, the launch keep out zone, and there are two areas on there in green which are dedicated areas for mariners to be positioned in for the orbital flight. So it looks as if boats are going to be allowed in those specific regions rather, and you can also see there the channel down to the port of Brownsville. So it looks as if that we're trying to keep the boats out of the way of that channel, also keeping them out of the launch keep out zone. And you can also see the two checkpoints there on Highway 4. So a general rule for launch day, do not go down there. Stay out of the way. Go up to kind of the Port Isabel Way, South Padre Island. That's your best bet to get eyes on this launch in person. But of course, if you can't get down there on launch day, we'll be bringing you the launch live on the channel. You know how to keep on track of all of that.
Yeah, just
Scott, go on, Jack.
to be extra clear, for me the map kind of like hurt my brain a little bit. Like the black is water, and the white is land. And if you see on the left side of the map that weird looking E sort of shape, or W, or whatever you want to call it, that is sort of the yeah, that is the border of the port. So there's a road that goes from there. You can trace a straight line all the way from there to Port Isabel. So there's a big long road with plenty of spots that you can find a spot on if Isla Blanca is full, if if you can't find anywhere else to go. So, and it is interesting that they have the marine hazard notice, or the dedicated spots for mariners. That's pretty nifty. That also means that if you're trying to take photos or video from Port Isabel, you are going to be basically you're going to have some cool boats in the foreground. Put it that way. Maybe even like a pirate ship.
Oh, throwback to the pirate ship. I remember that.
Right? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's where it ends up.
Yeah, Jack's gonna hijack the pirate ship.
There was the pirate ship going by the other day, like just a couple of days ago.
Yeah, it's right there in Port Isabel is where it is docked or moored or whatever the appropriate nautical term is, and it's just a sightseeing boat, so it's out and about all the time, and I would not be surprised one bit for it to be out for the launch itself. In fact, I expect it.
Alex, I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to. You went through the PDF. I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to kind of summarize it yet, but there's a few people in chat asking kind of what's going on. So about 45 minutes ago, coming up on 45 minutes ago, the launch license was issued for the orbital flight test on Monday. That's valid for 5 years. What are some of the points in the license, Alex, that have been published by the FAA?
Ooh, I think the key takeaways that I will take from this is, it's 5 years that it takes, but basically it's valid for 5 years. That for the moment it is only for the first launch, but again it can be amended in the future. So this is not a big issue in my opinion, at least. So not a big deal. And yeah, so it's just for Starship flights. One of the things that I did see that was interesting as well was that SpaceX needs to tell the FAA what's the plan with the vehicles. So they're gonna know way ahead of time when they have the second launch, the third and fourth and whatever. Once they go into those launches, they need to know way ahead of time. I think it is within 30 days of each launch, they already have to have some kind of plan for the launch and tell the FAA, hey, this is what is going to be the fate of both the booster and the ship. So it's not something that it's going to be decided like the day before of the launch or something like that. It's going to be way ahead of time.
Sounds good. Of course, as I keep mentioning, we keep getting loads of support coming in from everybody, so thank you very much. Again, I'm going to have to try rattle through these as quickly as possible because there's so much support. It's greatly appreciated, but time is a constraint. I don't have the ability to read out every single message, but thank you everybody for your contributions. And of course, everybody financially contributing isn't like expected, it isn't required. We're not asking for anything like that. Just watching, sharing, it goes a long way in helping to keep our content coming up on the homepage and stuff like that. Nate gifting 1 Red Team membership there, thanks very much. Plenty more messages coming in from the store, we keep seeing these popping up. And yeah, the patch keeps selling. Everyone loves the patch. And Helder has become a Capcom member. That means you get access to the Discord server if that's up your street. There you go, the patch available at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. It's a very popular item on the shop at the moment. And this is the video that was released earlier today, the practical guide video. So if you are thinking, as we were just saying, if you are thinking about going down there, this video has loads of information, not specifically about views and stuff, but more about what you need to bring with you, how you need to be prepared, where you can't go, all of that kind of stuff, and a very big emphasis that you need to have bug spray with you because the mosquitoes will eat you up if you do not. So get ready. If you are going down there, that video is a big help. It gives you loads of information from Das, Nick and Adrian about what you need if you're heading down there, and especially this intersection. This is the last point. If you go past here, there's no return. Well, you can come back, obviously, but that's the road down to highway. That's the highway down to Starbase. We've had a few more questions coming in over the last few minutes. Wild Food asking, any idea if SpaceX will have an external video of the landing / belly flop? Now, that's happening down in Hawaii. Ian, do we have any idea what assets might be deployed? Maybe planes, perhaps?
Yeah, we don't really have insight as far as I'm aware into anything capturing the landing. We do know, however, I believe it's the Ring Watchers on Twitter published an excellent little video short on all the different cameras they've spotted on the outside of Starship and Super Heavy. There is a flap similar to what we saw on SN15. One of the flaps is armed with a camera on the backside, one of the forward flaps, I should clarify. Has a camera facing aft. So much like during SN15's flight, where we saw a camera on the flap showing the flap going up and down and up and down, adjusting Starship's orientation, we might get a shot similar to that if A, the camera survives, B, Starship itself survives, and if they get video signal through reentry. So we may get a nice shot like that. There's going to be some other cameras on board Starship itself. We know there's going to be some on Super Heavy near the grid fins aiming downward. So if they get signal and if SpaceX chooses to share that camera with us during the stream, we may get some onboard shots from Super Heavy during landing too. Now, during ascent, I would be shocked if we don't get any sort of onboard cameras. We know there's some around the engine bay too, on the forward interstage of Super Heavy, as well as the aft skirt of Starship. So we should get some awesome shots there of stage separation and engine startup too. Again, this is all basically at SpaceX's disposal, what they choose to and to not share on the vehicle, but that's what we have available, and I hope we get to see some great shots.
We also have a super chat question from Scott along those lines about cameras, but also about telemetry. Now, Ian, we know that there are Starlink antenna on the booster. What do we know about telemetry, Derek?
Yes, so of course they do have traditional radio telemetry downlink like they do on Falcon 9, like, on Atlas 5, Antares, all the other rockets have. And SpaceX actually has their own ground station at Boca Chica. They have two ground tracking antennas. Those will track the vehicle as they go downrange before they get signal acquisition at likely Cape Canaveral, might be their next point. But they do have Starlink antennas on board, like you did say. Now, we don't know exactly what they're planning to do with these. If they're planning to just do some quick little signal testing, can we get acquisition, send some telemetry? Or maybe they're going to try sending all of their telemetry through Starlink as well. We don't have any concrete info on that, but we absolutely are going to get traditional downlink. We saw those during the suborbital flights, like SN8, SN9, SN15. So we know that we will likely get some onboard shots that way. Starship is not coming back to land, so there's no way they can recover like any of the cameras or hard drives on board. So everything they capture with the cameras will need to be downlinked. So we potentially could see everything.
Sounds pretty good. Now, as we get more into the Texan evening here, as the sun starts to go approach the horizon, I'm going to thank Jack for joining us on comms for this little Starship update that we're doing for you all with the FAA license being granted. So thanks, Jack. I'll let you get back to work out in the field with the rest of the NSF team.
Thanks. It's been a blast. I don't know that we could have scheduled this any better with the FAA license dropping in the middle of it. So heck yes. If you're one of our members and you're on Discord, I think the party is about to start in party chat if it hasn't started already. But if you want to become a member, be sure to sign up at Capcom level and above so we can all hang out and enjoy the hype train together. The hype train is sailing. Doot doot. All right, I'm out of here.
And coming in Jack's place, we've got Alex. I won't try to pronounce your full name because I'll fail it miserably. And you've been reading out the PDF to us over the last few moments since the launch license dropped, which was coming up on about an hour since the launch license was dropped. There's a question that has come in here. Where is it? It's a $20 super chat from Taras asking, will SpaceX be able to maintain onboard a video feed through re-entry? Will a Starlink data link be able to preserve a connection through what is usually the communications blackout period? Now, Alex, I know that Falcon 9 has a little bit of plasma buildup preventing comms, so does Dragon and pretty much anything else re-entering the atmosphere. Starlink looking up into space from the ship, looking up into space, will that prevent that kind of plasma buildup? Will we still get communications?
Well, I think that's the key question here, right? Because I don't think they have ever tried that. Falcon 9 does not have any Starlink antennas. We will know if it had, because they have to file permits with the Federal Communications Commission to get those on the vehicle, and so far we haven't seen those on Falcon 9 or Falcon Heavy for that matter. So yeah, what is it gonna be like? I don't really know, because it hasn't been done before. I think it's pretty much experimental at this point. It's just like a Hail Mary. Hey, if it works, it works, right? We have all the data and all the video through reentry, which will be super cool, by the way.
Yes.
Apart from that, I just don't know how they're gonna do that if they haven't done that before. That's sort of the idea. For Falcon 9, we know that they bounce signals here and there between the drone ship and the ground center, the launch site and things like that. The boys, nah, it's a joke. It's a joke. Yeah, but they do have Starlinks on the drone ships. We know that. They also have Starlinks on the support ships as well, which is usually what has been sometimes giving us some of the views from the boosters, I think. So even though they haven't been on the rockets, frankly, if they can survive a rocket engine burning next to them, maybe they survive reentry. We'll see what happens.
I mean, yeah, it does seem more like a tech demonstration than anything. Just like, hey, what can we get from this? How can we improve this in the future? And like you said, Alex, the great benefit of this is getting continuous data through reentry, something you can't do on pretty much any other vehicle. Actually, Philip Sloss here is correcting us and saying Shuttle did have some limited telemetry through TDRS during entry, but that would be especially useful for a flight like this, where you are testing, you have no idea if this vehicle can make it through reentry. If something were to happen to Starship during a data blackout and it breaks apart during reentry, which is totally possible on a flight like this and wouldn't be a major issue, if they have continuous signal, they can figure out exactly what happened and how the vehicle reacted to that and what occurred. If you have constant telemetry, now I wouldn't be surprised, if they have any kind of like black boxes on board that they could fish out, but that would just be an extra lifeline that they have to get a little bit of extra data here.
Yeah, and it's important because we actually don't really fully know how it's gonna be the whole reentry. Because now that Philip mentioned shuttle, the shuttle did roll reversals or yaw reversals. I don't know if it's roll or yaw. I think it's yaw, right?
Roll reversals.
Oh, roll.
Roll.
Okay.
Yeah.
The S turns.
Roll. Okay. Yeah. So the S turns, and every time they change the attitude, that kind of affected the signal, I believe. And so, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head because sometimes they used to have like short com strap, as the shuttle just was basically banking one side and the other as it re-entered, and that was sort of to eliminate that energy as it sort of glided through the atmosphere during re-entry. Starship is going to be re-entering sort of the same way at the beginning, but with a much higher angle of re-entry. But it could still do this sort of S turns here and there within the same re-entry corridor. We really don't know how it's gonna be the full. Is it just gonna be with a belly on the front all the time, or just doing a few more things here and there? Depending on that, that might affect the connections with all the Starlinks and everything. So we'll see.
Sounds good. I'm just going to quickly run through a few more of these store messages and super chats and like that's been coming over. So thanks for Linus for purchasing off the store. We have Jeremy becoming a launch director member. That's one of the highest member levels there are. So thanks very much for doing that. We also have flight engineer. That's another pretty high level there from Miss Daisy. And Ryan, that's a good name from the store, saying let's go. I think we're all pretty excited.
Not really. I mean, I have other stuff I could do on Monday.
We also have Daniel. Yeah, we also have Daniel with a store message saying thanks for all you do, keeping everyone up to date on everything space. And JC Davis has an interesting question here. How many attempts was it before SN8 flew? Alex, how many attempts did SN8 get to fly?
Boy, I think it was once. Once if you count. Hold on. So it attempted on a Monday, and then it is scrapped that day. They actually recycled on the same day, and then went on to the Tuesday, and that's when actually launched. If I'm remembering correctly. I think it was a Monday, and then it attempted again on a Tuesday, and that's when it launched. So it had one attempt and then the launch. So 2 attempts, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm getting confused because it's like I have so many things right now in my brain. So forgive me for that.
We have another store message here from Paul. Thanks to everybody who's buying off of the store. Been watching since Starhopper and love every Falcon 9 landing. Great coverage. We'll be watching as always. Thank you very much, Paul. We have a question from Dean here. If successful, will SpaceX be the first to launch 2 completely different demo vehicles within a decade, if not within a generation? Thanks. I'm gonna start this answer off with I'm thinking back to the 50s, 60s. We had many different kind of missile and orbital programs from NASA and the US Air Force. I'm thinking that probably would have been within a decade. Ian, you're pretty good with that kind of era, and the Saturn family and the Gemini program and stuff like that. Would this be the first private company, maybe?
First private company, potentially. What comes to mind really, really quick is Orbital Sciences, now part of Northrop Grumman, launching Antares, launching some of their Minotaur rockets. A lot of those demoed during the 2000s and the early 2010s. So I would say they probably take the cake on that first. There might be some other people before that. But yeah, like you said, if we include NASA here, then absolutely not. SpaceX is not the first because, Saturn 1, Saturn 1B, Redstone, Saturn V, Shuttle, all of those happened, within a few decades of each other. So SpaceX, this is absolutely revolutionary what SpaceX has done here, but I don't think they'd necessarily take the cake on that there.
Jeffrey with a store message saying, let's go. Lots of excitement coming in through the store messages and the super chats. Thank you, everybody. Dave K asking, John Innsbrucker on Monday. Yes, so from what we've seen on his Twitter account, it seems as if John Innsbrucker will be hosting the orbital flight test integrated Starship test flight, whatever they're going to end up calling it. Nobody can settle on a name. We need a name. There's SpaceX flight test, Starship flight test, the integrated flight test, orbital flight test. We just need to settle on one name, people, and make everything so much easier. Thank you, Raphael, for the store message as well. And also the super chat from Mike M. It's all greatly appreciated. We also have somebody called Patch buying off of the store. I'm going to assume that you got a patch. Yes, you did. So thanks very much for that. They're selling very quickly. Again, if you're just joining us and you missed the stream yesterday, the patches are back in stock. You can get them at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We also have Randall buying off the store, Nico buying off the store, John buying off the store, Catherine buying off the store. Thank you, everybody, getting these patches and other items off of shop.nasaspaceflight.com. There you go. You got the destination known mug, so you can I don't know, drink some coffee, tea, any other kind of liquid out of there. And let's move into some questions now. If you have any questions for us, tag us in chat at NASASpaceflight. It will come into the queue. We'll do our best to answer them with myself, Ryan Kate, and we also have Ian alongside me and Alex in the commentary box. Jason asking, how long till Ship 25 and Booster 9 after the orbital flight test? So OFT2, Alex, what kind of time are we thinking between OFT1 and OFT2?
I'm personally thinking after the summer. I'm mostly sure it's gonna be a few months until we see that second launch, because they're gonna have a lot of stuff to work on the pad. And they also have the other vehicles. Booster 9 will need to go through its static fire test campaign as well. And yeah, we just gotta see all of that coming together when it comes. I think it's gonna be a few months. Definitely
And
this year. I'm hoping.
Yeah, I'm hoping, me too, I'm hoping for this year. For too long have we had a drought of Starship flights. Kevin Conrad asking alongside a super chat, the license said it's valid for 5 years, but I did not see anything about the number of launches allowed. Alex, you were looking through the PDF earlier. Does that mean no limit on launches? How does the license work in terms of duration of the license and number of launches allowed with the license?
Yeah, so there's certain types of licenses. Sometimes they do specify when when a certain vehicle can, like, how many times can it launch and what are the terms of the launch. Like it's there on the terms of the launch. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just sometimes it's basically on other sort of terms of, maybe the environmental assessment, for example, or other. Because if SpaceX needs to comply with environmental, because one of the parts of the license, it actually says that they need to comply with environmental assessment. So it's like, if the environmental assessment is the one telling you, hey, you cannot launch more than 5 times, for example, or something like that, or that not that they cannot launch, but more like that the environmental assessment itself was done with 5 launches, taking into account only 5 launches, then if you have to abide to that, right, because the license says that, then obviously that's sort of your impediment in the number of launches. It comes by a secondary thing that you have to also abide for, right? So it's like, it's not explicit on the license, but sometimes it's something else that you also have to basically, yeah, you get what I mean.
Yeah. John has a question here about the payload of the ship. So Falcon 9 had a wheel of cheese. Falcon Heavy had a cherry red Tesla Roadster. Ian, do we have any idea of what SpaceX could be putting inside the payload bay of Starship, or is it sealed shut?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we don't have any word on any payloads being installed on there. Now, like you did say, Ryan, they do have kind of a payload bay on there. There is the Starlink PEZ dispenser installed, which is a mechanism that is able to hold and then deploy Starlink V2 satellites. Now, originally, we did see them do some testing on there, potentially even test loading satellites onto the ship. But after they were done with that testing there, they did seal and weld shut the payload bay. So even if there is, for some reason, a Starlink V2 satellite in there, it is not coming out of the vehicle. Now, other than that, there may be some little mementos on board, like we discussed yesterday, maybe something like one of the first, I don't know, engine valves SpaceX made or something, just like a little memento just to celebrate the launch. There's probably a few joke items in there or so. We don't have any official word on there. There may be nothing in there, but maybe we'll find out as we get closer to Monday.
And a good question here from Mark about mission control centers. Alex, I don't know if you'll have the answer on this one. How many mission control centers does SpaceX have? Don't they have a heavy launch and a Falcon launch coming up in short order? Now, I'm going to try and see if I remember this correctly. I know they have a launch control center in Florida. They have a mission control in Hawthorne. What facilities do SpaceX have at Starbase, Alex?
Okay, so actually they have 2 launch centers in Florida. They have Firing
Oh,
Room 4, I think. Yeah, Firing Room 4 at KSC, and
Yes,
they have
firing room 4.
exactly, and then they have the Launch and Landing Control Center by the South Gate, I think, at the Cape.
Yep.
Basically inside the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. And that's sort of the places where they control. So they have 2 launch centers because they have 2 launch pads, but also on those places they also coordinate the launches from Vandenberg are also coordinated from there, along with mission control, which is sort of like the central hub at Hawthorne. Now for Starship, they have for the hubs they used to have, and for testing I believe as well, they have Stargate, where they have like some sort of mission launch control mix there. And for this orbital launch, for this first full stack launch, that launch control center is located within the blast danger area, so they are not able to just randomly be there, even controlling the launch by themselves. So they have another mission control center close-ish to Massey, I believe. It's near the Ad Astra school, I think it is located.
Yes.
So that's sort of the other location that they have for when they actually do these full stack flights.
and we'll get into some more questions in a moment. Again, if you have a question, any question to do with Starship, Starbase, SpaceX, anything like that, anything along those lines, put them in chat at NASASpaceflight. We'll do our best to answer them. I'm just going to rattle through a few more of these store messages real quick that we have been getting. Thank you, everybody, for your support. We have a store message here from Willie. Sorry if I got that wrong. Let's light this candle. A Tyson's been buying off the store. We also have a red team member, a new red team member, Lampy. Thank you very much for that. $5 from Jeremy. Thanks very much. No message. We also have a super chat from Rankley saying, "World's loudest wake up call at the Margaritaville Hotel at South Padre on Monday morning." I'm not sure if anyone's actually going to be able to sleep that night. Ian, do you think you'll be able to sleep on Sunday night?
I am going to be completely honest. I am half debating doing an all-nighter, but I know that would destroy my schedule for the rest of the week, especially if, there was a scrub. So I might just do if I can, I'm going to absolutely crazy dose it up on melatonin and try to get a few hours of sleep Sunday night.
Sounds good. Alex, what about you? I know you're in Europe like me, so our time zones are about 5 hours ahead. So how are you? How are you going to cope?
I don't think I will be able to sleep. I'm not sure because the opening of the closure window is like 12 a.m. Central, so that's 7 a.m. here. It's still very early, even for me.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a long time without sleep. Because I don't think I will be able to wake up at 7 a.m. Oh boy.
Yeah. I know. Well, I have to be up in the morning anyway, so I'm gonna try wake up early, go to sleep early, get up early on Monday morning for this orbital flight test. If you're just joining us, your eyes do not deceive you. The FAA have licensed the flight for Monday. The license is valid for 5 years. Hopefully, it won't take 5 years. It will go at some point over the next week or so. But yeah, the next steps is to get this thing stacked. So make sure you keep track of all of that. We have Starbase Live going. We'll also have some more commentary live streams coming up, and obviously, of course, we have our videos coming out throughout the week, giving you more information about Starbase. A super chat here from Jeremy. And how will they monitor the splashdown? Will they use the NASA jets or their own cameras? Now, there were some things about the WB-57s, but that's not really an up-to-date timeline. So, Ian, do we know if they've got any assets out in the Pacific?
Yeah, we've not really heard anything about Pacific assets. Like you mentioned, the WB-57 has been kind of thrown around as a possibility to fly out here. Unfortunately, the public schedule for NASA's airborne operations, which includes the WB-57, is really never updated. You actually see it on your screen right there, and it's a bit of a mess to read through, if I'm being honest. But yeah, the WB-57, one of them is undergoing maintenance at this point, and the other one may be available for Starship operations next week. So really, we're just kind of the next thing we have to watch is just flight tracker. Is the WB-57 heading south out of Houston? And I'm actually being told. So yeah, we gotta stay tuned there and see how it is going per the WB-57. That would be some great assets. I don't know if we would see any of that live on stream, but hopefully we would see some video later on from NASA for that.
Yeah, I'm just looking here quickly on Flight Radar. I've put in the two WB-57 aircraft, which are, if you're interested and you're a bit of a nav geek
Aha.
like me. So the two registrations you want to look out for is November 926 November Alpha and November 927 November Alpha. I've just looked. They're not in the air right now. They haven't really been moving around. But yeah, if you do want to keep an eye out on the WB-57s, those are the two registrations you want to be looking out for.
And there are 2 imaging placeholders on Monday the 17th for each WB-57. Now, those are likely Starship related, if I had to guess. I don't know exactly if it will be both of them. It could be both of them doing different angles. I don't know if they have the capability to even send one out to the Pacific to watch, but if they do have that capability, I would not be too surprised for that. But so we'll need to keep our eyes out on what is it, Flight Aware 24, or was it? I forget what the website name is, but we'll have to keep our eyes out to see what the WB-57s are doing Sunday into Monday.
Sounds good. We also have many more store messages coming in and membership upgrades and stuff like that. So thank you to everybody who has been contributing financially over the last couple of hours as we have been getting very excited over the FAA license finally being approved. And it looks as if the world's most powerful rocket is finally going to be going on Monday. Unless it scrubs, I hate to use the S word, but we need to be, as I keep saying, we need to be prepared for if anything goes wrong, doesn't look right. It's better to be safe than sorry. As Alex, you've said it many times before. It's better to be on the ground wishing you were in the air than in the air wishing that you were on the ground. So yeah,
Get it?
sorry that we can't read out all of these messages. I'm just going to be trying to run through them as quickly as possible. Thanking everybody for your support. We greatly appreciate every single penny that you kindly contribute to us to help keep this content flowing over the internet to your screens and into your ears. We have a question here from Max asking about differences between the 33 Raptor 2 engines underneath Booster 7, the booster you can see on your screen right now, which is currently stacked on the orbital launch mount, and Booster 9. Is it just the, I think you meant to say TVC, thrust vector control, or are there other changes like reduced shielding? Now, Ian, what kind of updates have we been seeing between, or upgrades between Booster 7 and Booster 9?
Yes. So first off, they're mentioning the Raptors. As far as we are aware, the Raptors themselves, in terms of the pre-burners, the main combustion chamber, and all that, are not changed. The main thing that has changed on those Raptors, or as far as we're aware, the only thing that's changed on those Raptors, is the TVC, the thrust vector control. Now, Booster 7, Ship 24, and all prior vehicles have used hydraulic gimbaling, and those require them to have a hydraulic power unit on board to pump the hydraulics around to move the gimbals as needed. Honestly, it's kind of like brake lines in a car. You have to keep the brake pumps going in order to have actuated brakes. Now, with Booster 9, they've moved over to an electric thrust vectoring system. Now, that has many, many advantages. They could tap into their electric system that they already have on board to control the grid fins or control the flaps, but also it removes the mass of the hydraulic power unit, which is a significant mass savings. So yeah, Booster 9 does not have hydraulic power units. Uh, we don't know anything really about the engine shielding. However, it is very likely that as SpaceX, as they go along, they incrementally upgrade the shielding. So I would not be too surprised if Booster 9 has improved or strengthened shielding around the engines, but we're really gonna have to wait and see for some up close pictures as Booster 9 rolls out to the pad or as it's spotted around the production site to confirm that. But major difference between Booster 7 and Booster 9 are the electrically gimbaled engines there. And actually, I could see there is a crew lift going up around Ship 24. Don't know exactly what that's doing. Could just be some inspections or something, but just something to keep in mind right there.
Yeah, a very similar lift will be going up, or it might even be that exact lift will be going up to get the flight termination system ready. So if you wanna be a Texan crane spotter like everyone is here at NSF now, make sure to watch Starbase live, our 24/7 cameras, because you may be able to see them live arming the FTS whenever that happens. Potentially, I don't know, this evening, tomorrow, Sunday. Alex, do we have any idea of when the FTS
No,
could be
no idea.
armed?
No idea. I think because every time they approach the vehicles with lifts, people are like, "Oh, it's the FTS, it's the FTS." But on one camera, it's like it looks like it is approaching the ship. On another, it's approaching the OLM. On the other, it's approaching the tower. Because there's so many different points of view that you basically get confused, right? So here it's looking like very close to the ship. There's another. I'm looking right now at SPL. We have 4 cameras there. 3 of them looking at the vehicles, and they're like, there's one where it also looks like it's near the ship. So maybe this time it is, because we have had a few false positives, I guess, in the last few days. But we'll see what happens.
And also, that camera view right there is a great sense of scale, not just for Starship itself, but for those heat shield tiles too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Ryan mentioned earlier, each tile's around 30 centimeters in diameter, so about the size of like a large dinner plate. So just a sense of scale right there with those workers.
Yeah, you can see
Yeah.
both cameras here. The right-hand camera
Yeah.
looks to be like the lift is there near the ship. The other one as well. But maybe like you choose another camera on the other side, and then it's like, oh no, it's 1,000 meters away or something. I'm exaggerating, but yeah, it seems like they're actually at the point, because if you see that circular thing near the lift on the ship itself, that circular thing is one of the vents on the liquid oxygen tank, and that ring above it, it's sort of the top of the liquid oxygen tank, and then there's the weld line for that common bulkhead that separates both the liquid oxygen tank from the liquid methane tank. And at that weld line, a little bit to the right from the left-hand side camera, around the ship, that is where the FTS box is located. So maybe this time? And now the other lift is moving as well.
Oh yeah, there's another one that's now going up. That's
Maybe
interesting.
the other is going for the booster
Yeah, I don't know.
termination system, because it's on the side of the booster, so maybe. The other one is
Yeah.
very large. That reaches all the way to the top of the booster.
Either way, no matter what they're doing here, they're definitely doing some inspections or work on a ship right now. That is very much for certain right now.
I'm looking at another camera that we have at SPL, and they are at the FTS box. Now
That
it is for sure.
interesting. And given the news that we just got an hour and a half ago, I wouldn't be too shocked if they're going ahead with a little hardware uninstallation, if I may.
Yeah. Could this be? Look, it's like taking something out. There we go.
Yeah.
See, yeah, it's on the FTS box.
Wow, okay.
It is right there. Oh boy.
That would be
There we
very,
go.
very exciting if they're actually doing that right now.
Okay,
Just
the hype. Go ahead, Ryan.
gone
Sorry.
in. Oh,
I was gonna
okay.
say the
Well,
hype is getting real. Oh,
yeah. This is the problem with internet lag. You never know who's speaking.
Yep.
Yeah. So the launch license was issued just over an hour ago now. That's when the FAA announced it and gave us the PDF document that Alex read out. But yeah, it seems as if SpaceX are doing or arming the flight termination system. Perhaps that's where it is. We won't know for certain, really. But if that's where it is, then, and they've got a crane up there, then you put two and two together, it makes sense.
Very interesting. And that second lift is really interesting me. I'm wondering what they're doing with that, if that's any related work, or maybe pulling the pins on booster flight termination system, if that's necessary.
Perhaps you can see the SpaceX branded crane that's now going up as well. You can also see that over on the right, with, it looks like 2 or 3 people up there as well. Humans for scale with Starship. So yeah, it'd be very interesting if SpaceX are arming the flight termination system now. Personally, I assume they'd be doing it probably tomorrow to give them enough time. To give them enough time to lift Ship 24 onto Booster 7 in preparation for the launch attempt on Monday. So yeah, very exciting if they are indeed doing that now. We have another question here. Very related to what we're seeing right now. Karun, sorry if I got that wrong. Do they have to stack the ship today, or can they do it over the weekend? Now, Ian, are there any restrictions when SpaceX can lift the ship? Are there any road closures or anything like that?
Yes, so they do not need any sort of road closures to lift the ship, and that is actually a very good point there. Over the weekend, unless there is a very special exemption, which requires a lot of paperwork, and SpaceX has only limited a certain number of weekend exemptions, along with holidays as well, they cannot do a road closure or beach closure on the weekend. But like I said, thankfully, they do not need a road closure to lift the ship, so anytime, literally anytime between now and Monday, if they wanted to, they can lift the ship. But they, like I mentioned before, they will likely want to get it around maybe a day before, maybe a little earlier than that, just to do some final pre-flight checks, make sure everything is integrated correctly and ready to go. So yeah, anytime now they could lift the ship. I would assume maybe tomorrow night or early Sunday morning, but again, we do not have concrete numbers on that. We will watch to see how the chopsticks move and secure the ship. Then we'll know that they're going ahead.
Oh, look at that. That lift, that white lift, is approaching the commandant weld line on the booster. So it
Very
might be
interesting.
indeed going to the flight termination system box for the booster as well. So they're going to be doing it both at the same time.
It's moving into the booster. I think that's our confirmation. They're going ahead
Yeah.
with the flight termination system arming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And that on itself really shows me that, of course, we have the FAA approval now. We have the road closures, the beach closures, the temporary flight restrictions. This shows me that SpaceX themselves are confident that they are currently ready for a Monday flight, because I don't think they'd be doing this if they're saying, oh, maybe a few days later, we really don't know. Let's just get the permits and be safe. This shows me that SpaceX is confident as well, and that is a great,
Yeah,
great sign.
yeah. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with what you just said, Ian. So yeah, that is the ship on the left with the heat shield tiles. That is the orange crane with people on the basket there near the ship's flight termination system box, and then on the right you have the white SpaceX branded crane with 3 people on there near the boosters FTS box. So it does seem as if they're getting them armed. So Alex, what kind of turnaround, if we know, would there be between the arming of the FTS and then a lift? Could we see a lift of the ship later this evening, perhaps?
I wouldn't be surprised if they were to do that. Yeah, because the chopsticks are right now sort of in the place. They are not fully into the basically the sockets on the ship, but they are pretty much in the right position for that. So as soon as they do this, they might be able to just lift it and stack it. We'll see.
Yeah. It's been a few minutes since we've gone over some of the store messages and the like and the contributions. I'm just going to go over these real quickly. Thanks to William for purchasing off the store. We also have Joel, sorry if I got that wrong, Joel, saying, I absolutely love the old Texas Tank Watchers energy that's been around the last couple of days. Thanks for the streams. Yeah, it certainly feels like the flights, the suborbital hops that we saw with Starship, that the hype train is back at has left the station at Brownsville and is full speed towards Boca Chica. Drew asking if there's going to be an NSF after party at the Margaritaville Hotel. I'm not sure about any meetup plans. The team has been extremely busy down at Starbase, making sure everything's plugged in and ready to go for Monday. We also have an anonymous message from the store with the OFT patch t-shirt. I can't wait for the flight. Thanks for the amazing coverage. And Eric is very excited to see Starship fly. We have Plush Vader becoming a Capcom member. Thank you very much. We also have Hollywood 360 upgrading to Capcom. We have Patrick becoming a Capcom member, and we have Joshua becoming a Capcom member. If you are, and we also have Russell becoming a Capcom member. Thank you very much. If you are Capcom or above, you get access to the Discord. So if you are into that kind of thing, make sure to check out the Discord server once you get let in. We have Tom with a store message saying, thanks for all your coverage over the last couple of years. Upset that I can't be there in person, but I'll be watching the streams. Let's go Starship. And that's the whole point why we're doing this, really. We want to give you the best views possible from a bunch of space nerds to an audience of space nerds. It's the best way to experience this launch. We also have a super chat from Indonesia. Thank you very much. A store message from Harold saying, looking forward to the launch, hope to see re-entry from our home in Hawaii. That's really dependent on the time. Ian, I know yesterday we were doing some mathematics about the time it will be in Hawaii when the Starship launches. Do you remember that off the top of your head? Because it will take about 90 minutes for Starship to get around Earth. There's also the 5-hour time difference to take account for. Do you think Starship might be the re-entry plasma will be visible from Hawaii?
Yes. So it is a 6-hour difference if they launch exactly at, or sorry, was it a 5-hour difference? I can't believe I can't remember that now. It's either a 5 or 6-hour difference. So if they launch at 7 a.m. Central Time, 5-hour difference from then would make it 2 a.m. Hawaii time. Obviously, well before the sun comes up. Later in the window extends until 9:30 Central Time. So that would be -5. I'm not that good at math, even though I'm an engineering student. 4:30 in the morning. So that would be before sunrise. So you could see some plasma from Hawaii, even if this were to occur during the daytime, like when it's pure day in Hawaii, you would still be able to see it. But of course, since it will be pre-dawn or completely dark in Hawaii at that time, it will be very much visible. I don't know the exact areas where it will be visible. Obviously, if you're on the more northwestern islands of Hawaii, like closer to Kauai and all that, it will be much more visible and higher in the sky. But Yeah, keep your eye out. Look to the west, to the northwest, and yeah, about 90 minutes, 80 to 90 minutes after launch is when you should see it.
We have Steve with a store message saying, "See you in a couple of days. Driving down from Waco, that's in Texas near McGregor, where SpaceX tests their Raptors on Sunday. Tired of only seeing one Raptor at a time. Well, if you're not around there, you can see the Raptors, one Raptor Merlins, Super Dracos at a time on McGregor Live, our live cameras down in mid Texas. Is it South Texas, Ian? I'm not a professional in Texan geography, I do have to admit."
Yeah, so Waco/McGregor is like right smack dab in the middle of Texas, and I've been to Waco before. Very nice town, Steve.
There's an anonymous message in the store saying, "Loving the coverage. Thanks for all you do." David saying, "Thanks to the NSF crew for your hard work over the last few years. Looking forward to the years to come." Yep, the OFT's coming up on Monday potentially, but we're not just going to stop after the OFT. There's so much more to come for Starship and all of the other aerospace companies and organizations heading to the moon and Mars at the moment. It's a very, very, very exciting time in aerospace that you do not want to not be a part of, being honest. And another anonymous store message, "Thank you very much." And that's another patch going. The patch is extremely popular at the moment. They came back into stock yesterday, so if you want to get your hands on one of them, shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Harold also purchasing from the store, thanks very much. So is Jack purchasing from the store. So is Michael saying, "Go Starship, go NSF." Thank you very much for that. We have a super chat from 250 by the park saying, "Ryan is a great host," and stack. Well, thank you very much for the compliment. And yeah, hopefully this stack gets going at some point over the next day or so, because SpaceX will want the full stack ready before we get into the kind of the whatchamacallit, the road closures and hazard zones and stuff like that on like Sunday night into Monday morning. Dean saying with a super chat, "Waited for years and years to see Starship. It's about to launch on the first day back to school after a 2-week Easter holiday. Thanks for all your work, guys." You're very welcome, Dean. And John saying with a store message, "Texas tank watching, baby." Joseph on the store also saying, "Stoked for the launch." Florida Space Nerd has upgraded to a launch director in the YouTube membership program. Thank you very much for that. That's one of the highest tiers there is. That's above Capcom. So if you weren't already Capcom or above before, you now get access to the Discord. Laura saying on the store, "Excitement guaranteed." That's what SpaceX said. And go SpaceX. Congrats on the license. You're very welcome. We also have Blake gifting 10 Red Team memberships. Trevor saying, "Love watching the live feed." You're very welcome, Trevor. Stephen also on the store. So many store messages. I'm just going to rattle through these real quickly. We also have Marilyn in the store. Thank you, everybody who's been purchasing in the store, gifting, memberships, super chats, everything like that along those lines. It's greatly appreciated. We can't get to every single one of them, so sorry for that, because there's just so much support, but it is greatly appreciated from everybody here at NSF. Thank you so much. We also have all this up becoming a Pad Rat member. We also have a super chat here from Kushal and an anonymous store message and a store message from Mark. Great news for SpaceX. Really excited in the UK. Me too. I'm excited for SpaceX. I'm in the UK and clearing out the queue here. Joe, love you guys and everything you do. Can't wait for the launch. We can't wait either. Those 3 messages were from the store, and if you'd like to get something from the store, get over to shop.nasaspaceflight.com. We've got loads of swag and different types of merch for you to look at. Specifically, the most popular item at the moment in the shop is our patch. Everybody's loving the patch. It came back, as I just said, it came back into stock yesterday. So if you want to get your hands on one of that, it's also in the Stinger transition. If you want to get your hands on one of them patches, head on over shop.nasaspaceflight.com. You can sew it into anything you want. You can get it on you can Velcro it maybe. There's stickers, there's mugs, there's t-shirts, there's hoodies, there's jumpers, there's all the stuff. And coming in now, we have a Mr. Sawyer Rosenstein. Sawyer, what would you put the patch on?
I would consider it on a sweatshirt versus a jumper, as you can see the transition from the UK to the US here. But I personally would want it on a mug myself, just because I feel like it's a great way to fuel yourself up for the flight. Put some coffee or some soda or caffeinated beverage in there, and maybe some Loxygen, and enjoy.
Yeah, so I'm going to be stepping back now. I've been your host, Ryan Caton, for the last couple hours or so. I've got my commitments over at tomorrow coming up at the top of the hour, but I'll be leaving you with Sawyer hosting, and alongside in the comms box we have Ian and Alex. So thanks, everybody. I'll see you later at some point over the next few days. let's get excited for the OFT, but also remember that it might scrub. Don't get too hyped, but get excited. And also remember to tune in. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you later.
All
Have a
right,
good one,
thank
Ryan.
you. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for the awesome job hosting these last couple days. Been phenomenal. Great to have you on board the team, and great to have everybody who is here with us watching. A reminder, the latest update that we have is that the launch license has been administered by the FAA. So we are essentially go for the launch currently scheduled for Monday. The only operation that's mainly left is the arming of the flight termination system, which we're continuing to watch them work on the booster as we speak right now. So let's take some questions related to that while we're discussing it. So, in terms of the flight termination system, Aiden with a good question here. In layman's terms, what is actually required to arm the FTS? Ian, I'll pass that one on to you.
Yeah, so the terminology we've really been using and we've really been hearing is arming the flight termination system by pooling the pins. Now, obviously, it's probably a little bit more complicated than just that. As we've seen, these crews have been out here for about 20 minutes now, about 15 minutes, I would say, arming the flight termination system and working on it. So that probably includes removing the protective boxes, ensuring all the wiring is connected, and there may literally be a physical pin pooling involved. Think about it like when you buy a new electronic component that has batteries pre-installed. You need to pull that little plastic sticker out of there to get a proper connection between the two wires to make the electronics active. That's basically a small version of what they're doing here, pulling the pin out to physically hardware side activate the FTS. Now, of course, this is not there's not really that much of a risk of this going off right now because on the software side, it is absolutely not armed yet. We will likely hear that call out if we have access to SpaceX's internal countdown through their webcast. We may hear a milestone, countdown milestone called FTS is armed. And that's when the software powers up the flight termination system, gets it ready for flight. And that checkpoint will occur sometime during the countdown on Monday. So right now, they're just physically pulling the pins, getting the FTS wired up to be activated during the countdown on Monday.
All right. And along those lines, while we're still talking about the FTS, I'll pass this one on to Alex. Is the FTS a C4 charge? So, how exactly does this flight termination system work?
Oh boy, I don't really know the nature of the charge itself. I don't even think that's something that is public. Maybe it is. If anyone knows it, like I really don't. I'm not an expert on flight termination systems. I do know basic things about flight termination systems, as Ian explained. You have like a control box, a charge, then you have a safety system in between. So like, yeah, I don't know beyond that. I just know sort of like the basics of it. Yeah, you can see there the ship flight termination system, the red or orange, yeah, orange left being right there at the flight termination system box on the ship, and the white one way above is on the booster one.
Yeah, it's basically most of them usually are some form of detonation cord that either used to be for the olden days kind of commanded by someone manually, then they got a lot of the data that gives them red line indications, and now a lot of vehicles are switching over to the autonomous flight termination system, which does it automatically. But the goal with all of them is basically the same. For a liquid fuel rocket like this type, create a charge that can basically split the tanks open like a zipper, spilling out the propellant, minimize mixing for when it actually blows up. Again, we don't want to see that if we can avoid it. Hopefully, we won't, but if we need to, it is there. And as mentioned, this is one of the final major milestones here. Here's a question from Mark Green asking: are there any launch restrictions to prevent collisions with space debris? Ian?
Yeah, so there absolutely are launch restrictions. They do take space debris and not even space debris, active satellites into the mix when they figure out when they are able to launch, especially on a mission like this where it is going up to an orbital altitude. Of course, it's not quite going to orbit, but it will be passing through many active orbits for vehicles. The first things that come to mind, obviously, are Starlinks, the International Space Station, and all of those orbits are actively taken into consideration. And there are actually many launches. In fact, Artemis Artemis 1 is one that I think of where they had several cutouts during the countdown of where they could not launch because it would get too close to a certain satellite or sets of satellites. Electron is also another one I could think of where they do have cutouts in the countdown. Now, Starship should really be no different to this. They are going to have to monitor, of course, SpaceX's internal Starlink satellites, the International Space Station, every other satellite and space debris that is known on orbit. So there will be cutouts in the countdown. We very likely will not know where these countdowns are or where these cutouts are or how many there are, but there undoubtedly will be parts of the countdown where they cannot launch yet because of I forget the actual terminology, but because of spaced collision or collision avoidance. That's what it's called, collision avoidance.
Yep, collision avoidance and debris avoidance as well. Hopefully, they don't have to perform any maneuvers around that. But yeah, so even though we see the length of the countdown, the window is 2.5 hours or so, it's not exactly that. There are certain times within that window that they can hit that will allow them to launch, and if they don't, then maybe sometimes we're talking a couple seconds, other times a couple of minutes, where they'll just have to wait till they would have the next point in that window where there's nothing above and that they avoid the collisions. Let's see some other questions here. Uh, Joey asking if this flight goes as planned, will this count as the Methalox flight winner? We've been talking a lot about the race to orbit for Methalox rockets. That's liquid oxygen and methane. Alex, would this be a winner then?
Hmm. Is it really going into orbit? Let's open the can of worms. Come on.
I had to.
I mean, we have heard from Troy Bruno today that Vulcan is being delayed to June, July. So that's one of the contenders getting a little bit of a delay there. So, I mean, I'm thinking the second flight is going to be after the summer, but maybe SpaceX can do it before. Maybe the second flight is going to be actual orbit. Who knows?
Second flight is next week, confirmed.
Yeah, I
Hey,
mean,
24-hour turnaround, right?
Oh my God! Wow, that'd be something.
Yeah, I mean, the first video I ever did for NASA Spaceflight that I worked on here was the Great Methalox race of which will make it to orbit first. We had a Chinese rocket that passed the Kármán line that made it to space that used Methalox. Terran passed the Kármán line, so it made it to space but also did not orbit. So if that's the case here, this would be the third Methalox rocket to space, but I don't think it would technically complete a full orbit. So, I mean, I guess argue away in chat on that as well. But my
Mm.
technical opinion would say if it doesn't complete at least one orbit and go back to the same point where it entered orbital velocity, that it's not orbital but will have gone into space.
Yeah, it'll definitely go into space. The trajectory that this flight is following actually needs to go into space because it's going so far away around the Earth that again it's just almost an orbit by basically almost at the breath of a raptor, as one will metaphorically say, right? Because it's like really close to an orbit. Because it needs to go with just one burn of the second stage of the Starship. It just needs to go, I think it is 3/4 of the whole Earth around the globe. So it's a long way to go. If you don't go really close to orbit, you're not getting there. People have this conception that when, for example, Falcon 9, I remember when Falcon 9 was starting to do its drone ship landings, people were asking why cannot land it, in Africa or something. The distance at which Falcon 9 lands on the ocean, it's 600 kilometers. That's way too far away from Africa. Like, it's not like the shuttle where it had the wings and things like that, and it could glide all the way to Europe and Africa and things like that. It's totally different, and you need a lot of speed in order to be able to go even just across the ocean all the way to Europe. Much more if you want to go 3/4 of the way around the Earth. So it's very close to orbit, but it is not a proper orbit. It's what is usually called like transatmospheric or something like that. I do know that Jonathan McDowell calls it something along those lines.
Yeah, so it's questionable. One thing that is for sure is that it will be the first vehicle to launch with 33 engines, and it will likely be the most powerful vehicle to ever lift off. So there's
Not
still
likely.
plenty. What'd you say?
Not likely the most powerful vehicle. It will be the most
Yes.
powerful and capable rocket ever to leave Earth's soil. So that'll be if it clears the pad, it will immediately take that title. So there'll be something to take away from there.
True. The title is currently held, I believe, by SLS and Orange Rocket.
Yeah, orange rocket good, but shiny rocket good too.
I like it. Perfectly said.
Well, is the title technically just a launch or like a successful flight? Because in terms of launch, the most powerful rocket was the N1. Now, granted, it didn't go even to the second stage ignition, but it did lift off. But we'll see
It
what
lifted off, but it
happens
was
with
0 for 4. Yeah.
yeah. It didn't go to orbit. It didn't complete a successful flight. So yes, SLS is the most powerful to complete a flight. And I'm calling that because if I say to go into orbit, we go again to the question of does a Starship fit in that category? I'm gonna say complete the flight.
Yeah. Sounds like it would be the most powerful, but goes 0 for 4. Sounds a lot like the sports teams I root for.
Oh wow.
Sports ball. Anyway, we've got some great messages coming in from all the people getting the patches and all of the stuff with this fantastic logo that was designed in the shop. Jay, let's go Starship. I'm with you on that. Anonymous saying finally. Thank you, Joshua, for the kind words. Adrian asking if they're stock or pre-order. You'll be able to pre-order them, and we'll get them out to you as soon as possible. Susan, I'm with you. Let's go. Total success, hopefully. Tyler, thank you for watching as long as you have. Oscar, we're glad you appreciate the coverage as well with both of the items that you got in the shop. A Starship launch bingo would be fun with Ad Astra on that message there. I think that could be a good idea at some point. Shuttle reference still has to be on it though. Asha, thank you very much. Glad you at least got to be there for something. Uh, Shane, appreciate the kind words as well, and Michael, and Colby there as well, and the support coming in from Ruben too, and Brandon saying, "Let's get this bread, fam." Hopefully, in my case, gluten free. All right. Continuing back on with your questions, which remind you can tag us at NASASpaceflight, and we will do our best to answer as many of them as we can. Here's a question from Explosion 1000. It's a really good question for Ian here. Why is there even a time window, a launch window? Can't they just launch into orbit at any time?
I mean, technically, they absolutely could. I mean, there's nothing physically stopping them. Of course, the fact that the vehicles are unintegrated, but there's nothing stopping them from launching now. The reason that they do have a set launch window is to work with the FAA, to work with the Coast Guard, to work with all the assets they're working with to get these range closures, to get this launch license. it Again, it is possible to just say, hey, launch whenever, but that would be extremely dangerous. You need to clear the area, get the flight restrictions up, the notice to mariners up, the notice to the notice to airmen, or sorry, notice to air missions. You have to get all of those up and organized. You can't close off airspace for like a week straight over the Gulf of Mexico, and you can't close shipping lanes for like a week straight over the Gulf of Mexico to give SpaceX any time they want to launch. That would destroy the shipping economies. So you need to kind of have little cutouts here and there. And you need to have those in place so that you don't drop a rocket stage onto a ship, or you don't have a rocket collide with a plane midair. Things like that, you want to avoid that at all costs. So that's why they only have set launch windows that are not infinitely long and not several hours long. That's why those exist.
Exactly. And like you mentioned, there's a lot of major airports that are kind of nearby, or even some smaller ones, which you can find out which ones those are and which ones you might want to fly into if you're visiting in our latest video on the Practical Guide to Starbase that came out today. A little shameless self promotion on what is a fantastic video, though. Uh, it's fantastic here, just also just watching them work, knowing that we're at the final milestones here. We have the launch license acquired. Now it's about arming the flight termination system. And Nomad asking here, is there a better way planned to arm the flight termination system other than the people going up on these lifts. Alex, any idea on the plans for the future, or is it just climb up to it and activate?
Well, again, I think I should make the distinction again that the arming of the flight termination system per se is going to be done once the ship is on the booster and during countdown, right? This is just to pull the safety pins. In the future, you could imagine that the vehicle is being reused so many times that the flight termination system never needs to be like it never needs to use a safety system because by the time the ship is coming back again and landing on the chopsticks or whatever it needs to land, or whatever changes have been made there, once that happens, it's already ready for launch again. So you don't need to pull the pins because there's no need for that. There's no need for the pins in the first place. People are just not going to be even around. They're just going to stack the ship on top and they're just going to launch it again. Now, it is also true that maybe between launches, if it's, for example, a ship with a payload bay, you might want to take the ship apart and then put a payload on board. So you put the pins, you put the safety system back on the flight termination system, put the payload on, carry it to the payload processing building or whatever they're going to be installing that. You put the payload on, then roll it back to the launch site, remove the pins, and then put it back on the booster. So it is something that right now might not make sense, but in the future, when they are in these rapid launch cadence, it may just come down to it's not even gonna be installed in the first place at any point during those reuses, or if it's a ship with payload bay, or it needs maybe crew, for example, or something like that, maybe in between they do have it, and it's gonna be standing down anyway. It's not gonna be launching again in an hour or something. It's still gonna be taking a few days, maybe more, right? So it's not gonna be something that it's like, oh, because they need to arm the FTS or pull the pins in this case, that will set them back with the reuse methods or something like that. There are ways to go around that.
Exactly. Yeah, very well put there.
And
Uh,
real quick,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
Sawyer, I just want to address, someone did correct me here. Christian here asking about the oil rigs in the Gulf. That is something else that I forgot about. There are active oil rigs scattered all throughout the Gulf of Mexico that need to be taken into account too. You can't fly over an oil rig because the oil rig can't really move, so that'd be a major safety violation. So that is taken into account when planning the flight trajectories out of Boca Chica. Not only that, of course, the Caribbean islands, you got Cuba, the Dominica, you have the Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, all of those are taken into account. They have to weave all around those so they don't have any risk of impacting any of those should something go wrong in flight. Just wanted to add that on real quick there.
No, thank you for adding that. That's a good addition there because it is a good question. You've got obviously the ships that need to stay clear, as well as taking into account those oil rigs. And again, that's part of with the FAA license and all of that, and with the work with the ranges. That's exactly what they had to do to get that license approved. Is prove that anyone that would be downrange would be safe as long as they are within certain restrictions. Here's a good question from Upper Level Winds, and it's something that you mentioned that we might actually have here. Ian, I believe you mentioned it, so I'll pass it on to you. Asking, what do they mean when they say the Flight Termination System, or STF, is safed while on Falcon 9 with the first stage, and something that we might hear with this?
Yes, so flight termination is safe means that they have software disabled the flight termination system. That does not mean that there's been any hardware change, but that is just that the software has said, okay, we cannot access the flight termination system anymore. No matter what happens, it cannot be triggered through the software. Now, at that point, that is the current status right now of Starship. The FTS is disarmed. However, they are hardware arming it so that in the future they can arm it through software. So that's what happens when you hear, stage 1 FTS is saved, stage 2 FTS is saved, and potentially, Super Heavy and Starship FTS has saved in the coming test launch.
One important thing as well that the license mentioned is that these are autonomous flight termination systems. So for this one, there's not a person or a group of people on the ground with a red big button. It's the vehicles themselves need to understand and need to have the capability to see when they are veering off course. And so it is very important for them to precisely do all of these checkouts before the launch, so that, because we saw them a couple of weeks ago actually. Jack had a Starbase update video about that, talking about, we saw them on the flight termination system for the booster, and they were like with machines and things like that, checking stuff. That was probably a test of that system, of checking that the computers see that the rocket is not going in the right direction and send the signal to the detonator that then obviously detonates the charges. So that is very important. And yeah, when they say FTS is saved on Falcon 9, that is sort of the same thing. It is the flight termination system says, hey, now I am in the correct location to just shut down, to just not be armed, because we are already in sort of in a trajectory that I will not harm anyone. So that is very important as well for Starship and Super Heavy.
After saying that, I don't know why, but I'm picturing David Tennant's 10th Doctor going with a great big button that we would have to press on the ground. Now, I do want to point out we have some fantastic views here from our cameras, but we also have some amazing views coming in from some of the people on the ground at Starbase. So, a huge shout out. We've got some pictures now coming in. I believe these are from our own Jack Beyer here, as well as Michael Baylor. This is Jack's picture showing them working on the booster side arming of that flight termination system, as well as the arming on the ship from a slightly different angle there too. Amazing job from the team down there. Please, if you don't already, show them some love. Make sure you follow them on all the social media platforms, because they are out there doing nonstop work to bring you some of these fantastic images and videos and pictures and things. So, Jack, amazing work out there. Michael, great work as well.
I believe on Michael's one of the ship, you can even see the pins. I just
There it is.
watch it like for like, yeah, you have to zoom into like very in, but I think I can see the red tags on each side of the box.
Yeah, there's Michael's shot
Maybe.
with a really good
There we go.
close-up.
They're zooming in. I think it's there. Is that there,
Enhance.
or is that a reflection from the lift? I think those are the
Might be a
pins, right?
reflection.
It could
Because
be.
it's like right where the pins are located. So the charges on this box, just to explain it a little bit, they are located on the top left and the top right corners of this box. So it's like, if it's a reflection, wow, that is quite the coincidence, because it's like right on the locations where these charges are located.
Wow. That is amazing to be able to see it that close up. And that looks like the actual pins. You mentioned there's two of them, top left and top right. There are two red tags visible in the top left and top right of that flight termination system box.
Yeah. If they are, I mean, they could be reflections. I'm not saying like, oh yeah, it's definitely. They could be reflections, but if they were, oh boy, they are really well placed. Because
Regardless,
that's where the charges are located.
regardless, great captures there, Jack, and this one from Michael out in the field as well. And a reminder, joining as a member, you'll get some exclusive images as well coming in from the field down at Starbase too. So that is one of the perks of becoming a member as well. I do want to thank some other people that are showing us support in other ways, both through super chats and through purchases at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Ron Smith, at this point, all I want is to protect the pad and GSE, exactly. Hashtag save stage 0. James getting a couple items from the store. It has been a long wait from Mercury to Starship. Belinda will pass along the idea of an OFT throw pillow to the shop team. Gary with the classic, let's light this candle. Travis, thank you for getting multiple items from the shop. And as you can tell, we are all very excited as well for this orbital flight test coming up, currently scheduled now for Monday. Anonymous, I'm with you. Godspeed Starship, and thanks to all the crews down at Starbase who have made this possible. Greg, thank you very much from the store as well. 250 by the park with the very kind words, Sawyer, Ian, Alex, you're all cool too. And remember, stack, stack, stack.
That's a new one.
I think we got to pass that on to Jack for
Yeah.
stack down there. Eric, thank you very much as well for the support. Appreciate all the questions coming in. As we mentioned, we're getting a lot of support, so it is acknowledged, and we truly, truly appreciate it. We're not just saying it. It's because of the support from people like Alex and Marco getting things in the stores that we can do what we're doing right now and provide you 24/7 live feeds from here, McGregor, and the Space Coast. So thank you. Thank you, Paul, as well, for the kind words, too. All right, it's time for my favorite segment, Cortac asking, what does the weather look like for Monday? Here is your weather for Monday. Currently, it is scheduled to be sunny with a high near 76. Winds coming from the east at 8 to 15 miles per hour with gusts up to 22 miles per hour. And that is according to NOAA and weather.gov. Now, on to sports. Or better yet, another question, which we will go to Sith Solo here. And Alex, since you worked on this in the video that we just put out a couple days ago, I'll pass this to you, saying, how will Stage 1 and Stage 2 separate after Miko?
Oh, that's a really good question, because that's I think what we call that was like uncharted territory, or like unknown territory,
Yep.
because the way that the booster and the ship connect together is by pins that sort of guide the ship onto the top of the booster, and then inside the pins there's like a hook, so that keeps both together, but there's not a separation mechanism per se, right? It's more like there's just holding together. So the way that they have to separate it needs to be with like some sort of kick, a way for the ship to just basically go away without any sort of pusher. And Elon explained once to Team Dot a couple of years ago that the way that they were gonna do that is sort of the same way that they separate the Starlink satellites from the Falcon 9 second stage, which is they rotate the second stage and then basically make free the whole stack of satellites, and they just drift away. And they do that just by inertia, because if you're spinning, the satellites will want to keep spinning, whereas the second stage can just, with cold gas thrusters, just stop in the way. In the case of Super Heavy, he said it will be sort of like a kick as it shuts down the engines and then both separate. Now the timeline, though, it gives like like some sort of separation in time between when the booster engines shut down and the separation. So it's probably not going to be at the same time. It's going to be with a bit of a separation there. So probably like a kick, then wait a couple of seconds, release hooks, and then the ship flies away. Now, as if that is still the plan, though, we're not fully sure, because they can also, for example, just basically release the ship and then ignite the engines and just let it go instead of giving it a kick, because that is also an option. Because what better way of separating the ship from the booster than just ignite the engines, right? The only problem is you're very, very close to the booster at that point. So that's going to be quite a thing to see. It's sort of an uncharted territory there, because, again, when Elon said this, it was July 2021. That was 2 years ago. Things have changed a lot on the vehicles. Things have changed a lot on the profiles and things like that. It could have changed as well, right? And so we have to acknowledge that it's a little bit of unknown territory, even though Elon talked about that a few years ago.
Yeah, and one thing that I'm wondering now, because they have the tank vents that are the kind of RCS on board the ship, I wonder if they would activate those to be a little bit of ullage, just to help separate a little bit more. Like, I'm very curious to see what this is going to look like during flight, and I think SpaceX is curious to test it out too, because, like you said, it's uncharted territories. It's a new, novel concept of separating stages of a rocket, so it's going to be a big milestone.
Exactly. This is the major steps are on the way. Let's see. We have some major support coming here from Conservative Space Nerd. Fingers crossed. Thank you very much for the support, and our fingers will be crossed as well, probably for at least the next 48, 36, 72 hours, however long until this thing flies. Everything that we can cross will be crossed. Brian with more support in the store. Appreciate that. Nicholas as well, thank you. And Anonymous, thanks NSF, thank you Anonymous, and everyone who is supporting us through the shop at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. And this just in, there is word that Elon Musk has tweeted, and he says, success? Maybe. Excitement? Guaranteed. couldn't have said that much better, right?
Absolutely. There's going to be a lot of excitement no matter what happens. It's going to be a huge, huge day.
A lot of
Yes.
shaky legs as well, because, jeez, I'm already. Ooh boy.
I'm doing the good old ADHD knee shake. If anyone knows
Yeah.
what that is, I've been doing that for the past probably about a few hours.
Oh boy.
Yeah, sorry, no shaky legs for me, but I'll still be excited. And
Nah.
lastly, SpaceX Sammy, thank you for becoming a launch director member, one of the higher membership tiers. Capcom and above, which includes launch director, also get access to our Discord. So for those who are just joining us here, as we see this beautiful sun behind Ship 24 and Booster 7, we have officially confirmed from the FAA that there is a launch license for SpaceX to fly Starship Monday. And that is scheduled to open the window at 7 a.m. Central Time, which is 12 UTC. And as we speak right now, there are teams working on arming the flight termination system ahead of that flight. And if you want to keep watching what's going on right now, you can make sure to tune in to Starbase Live, where we have 24/7 coverage of everything going on down at Starbase, and we'll have all the way up to, through, and past the upcoming flight. And a reminder, if you like seeing all of the different views that we have down at Starbase, we have a multi-view that will be for members only. So if you are Red Team or above, you will get access to this exclusive members multi-view stream so that you can see all of the different sights and sounds at Starbase in addition to what we already have at Starbase Live. But anyway, I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I was proud to be joined today by...
There we go.
Oh, there it is. There's a
There
look
you
at
have
that
the
preview.
multi-view.
Yep. All you gotta do is join. You get you get access to that as part of the membership program. As mentioned, I am Sawyer Rosenstein, joined by Alex and Ian, and in the back channels we've got Patrick and Kevin, and other people helping to operate the cameras. It's a full team operation going on here. But for now, we are going to end our commentary and send you over to Starbase Live. And again, if you're Capcom or above, make sure you have another tab open with that multi-view. Have a great night, everybody.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RS-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside FTE off. Say again, FTE off. It's orange!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You bet. We don't need any more of these.